Good morning. I'm calling to order the Panama City Commission meeting for March 10th at 8 a.m. Thank you for attending today. We're going to start off with an opening prayer by Dr. Steve Tipton, Senior Pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Brian Granger. Please rise.
Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we do come to you this morning, Lord, and we praise you. For you are the God who is infinite, eternal, and unchangeable. You hold all things in your hand, even us this morning, O Lord. And we thank you, Lord, for the way in which you have poured out your grace and your provision upon us, even here in this city, and ask that you would be with these council members, that you would give them wisdom and understanding, Lord, that they might govern our city well, that you would continue to uphold them and strengthen them. We pray for all those, O Lord, who serve to protect our lives and our freedoms. We pray for our police, fire, emergency services. We pray, Lord, for those who protect our freedoms in this nation. We pray for our armed forces, for those who are in harm's way this day, and pray your grace and protection over them as well. Lord, in all these things, we seek your face, your grace, your mercy upon us. Bless us, we pray, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
You'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Branch.
Present.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Lucas.
Present.
Commissioner Granger.
Present.
Commissioner Street.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
You have received the meeting minutes from February 24th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Any additions, deletions, or modifications?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, staff has one item 8E as an echo under the consent agenda. We would like to move that to the next meeting, please, the second meeting in March.
Striking 8E. Any other additions, deletions, or modifications?
None from staff.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the move of item 8, echo to next meeting.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Feeling lucky this March? Spring into the season by staying connected. Sign up for City Communications and get updates straight to your inbox or cell phone. From our monthly newsletter to real-time alerts, we'll keep you close to the heart of the community. Don't leave it to chance. Scan the QR code or visit panamacity.gov to sign up today, because a well-connected community is the best kind of good luck. Andy the Chatbot. This month we're introducing Andy the Sailboat, Panama City's new AI-powered chatbot, now live on our website. Andy is designed to help you find information faster and easier. Whether it's city services, upcoming events, or answers to common questions, please note that Andy is fully automated, so you won't be messaging a live representative. Try it out at panamacity.gov and explore a smarter way to navigate everything our city has to offer. Panama City's Charter Review Advisory Board is actively engaged in a comprehensive review of the city charter. Their next review meeting is Thursday, March 26th at 12 noon in room 236 at City Hall. And the Panama City Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee has gathered community input regarding parks under consideration for potential consolidation. For more information on both, please visit the city's website at panamacity.gov. Join us for Ignite STEM, a fun, interactive STEM experience designed for youth and families in our community. Brought to you by HCA, Florida Healthcare, and the Bay County Chamber of Commerce, Leadership Bay Class 43. This event goes beyond textbooks, showing kids the exciting possibilities of STEM learning and careers right here in our community. Ignite STEM will be held Saturday, March 14th from 10 a.m. to noon at the MLK Junior Rec Center. This event is free, however, registration is required. Scan the QR code on the screen or visit our website to register today. The next tree giveaway will be held at the MLK Junior Rec Center on Saturday, March 28th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. or while supplies last. Bay County residents may receive up to 2 trees per household. Tree options include blueberries and East Palatka hollies. More information can be found, as always, on our website. We will host a pre-budget planning and priorities workshop Tuesday, March 31st from 4:30 to 7 p.m. This workshop will be held at City Hall in Room 10 on the lower level and will also be live streamed on our website. Moving into public hearings, Mr. Mayor, Commission. Item 6A is the first of 2 public hearings for the development agreement between the city and CBD Holdings, LLC, for the property at the end of John Pitts Road, which is parcel ID 03875-000-000 in Panama City North. As background information, enclosed is the proposed draft development agreement between the city and the owner-developer of the property, commonly known locally as the Shelton property, located at the end of John Pitts Road in Panama City North, again with parcel ID 03875-000-000. The primary purpose of the development agreement is to establish the manner in which the property will be served with water and sewer utilities. The proposed term of the development agreement is 30 years. The property consists of approximately 1,200 plus or minus acres and is zoned planned unit development with an underlying future land use of urban community. The second public hearing has been scheduled for March 24th of 2026. All noticing has been provided in accordance with Section 163.3225 of the Florida statutes. Staff recommendation through the Director of Development Services and the City Manager's Office is that the City Commission conduct the first of 2 public hearings for the development agreement. Mr. Mayor?
This is a public hearing. If you wish to speak about item 6A, please come to the podium. Item 6A. Seeing no comments, closing public comments.
I don't have page 5 of the development agreement.
I don't either on this one.
And it references option B in one of these.
I have it. It's online.
Thank you. Appreciate
Happy to
it.
help.
Yeah, that is odd. I don't know if that's a printer issue or what.
And I think it's an important piece because it talks about option B, that the developer can exercise, and that's not.
Should we read it for the record?
Well, this is just the first hearing. We're not voting on anything. I mean, unless it's appropriate that we read the whole page.
Well, no, I've got it right here. She put me a copy.
Jared.
So I do have a question, no. On 3, I guess that would be F. Yes. On 3F, it talks about that the city shall have a term of 1 year to pursue planning, permitting, funding, and other governmental actions reasonably necessary to advance the development of the wastewater treatment plant and water booster pump. Permitting funding. We got 1 year to pay for how much? What are we agreeing to pay for? I know a wastewater treatment plant and booster pump on a cost level is there. I don't see a not greater than. Do we have an idea of what we're committing to?
Can you, what?
He's on page 6.
I'm on page 6 under 3F.
I think I could summarize page 5 just for the context.
Okay.
That's online. But if you look at page 4, which obviously is right before, it talks about under 3B, it talks about the Panhandle completed a hydraulic wastewater modeling, and this is known as the Shelton property from the owner of the property, and has determined that there are 475 units right now that could be done. And the city, in the missing page 5, the city acknowledges and confirms the remaining 475 ERC capacity is reserved for the owner for no less than 3 years. And so that means that that's essentially phase 1 of the project, 475 housing units, and it'll be reserved for 3 years. And then the owner can hang on to it if they're actively pursuing the development of the project. The next portion there of page 5 that's online, but it wasn't in your pack, says that that there is, the city acknowledges and confirms that the off-site wastewater improvements that are outlined by Panhandle is to activate the existing 13.5 miles, 16-inch dry line that was placed there 20 or more years ago, proposed 9,518-inch sewer force main, and then a new wet well structure. And the city acknowledges that this is, once again, this is to help get the first 400 and some units off the ground. And then it says that the owner will be entitled to a utility impact fee credit for improvements that they make that benefit the entire system. And they're outlined here. And that is similar to other projects that we have done in Panama City North. And then the last little piece there on page 5, that the city and the owner have both expressed interest in a wastewater treatment plant and water booster pump station, and the owners agreed to provide land on the subject property not to exceed 18 acres. And then the city would agree to pay for that if the city, as far as to identify it. So what's interesting about this project is that it is setting up a location for future wastewater treatment through a package plant, I mean a modern package plant, obviously, as far as identifying a path forward for the city to identify that and to start, providing sewer treatment in Panama City North area. So page 5 is important, Commissioner, and it's online, but it was not in your packet. And this is the first of 2 public hearings, and obviously any questions that you come up with or ask, we'll get answers before the next meeting.
I probably share in some concern that Robbie has, which is I don't think we, the city, should be investing more money in infrastructure that the property taxes don't pay for. Like, we don't want to go in the hole for developments, and so there's a fear of we invest millions and we're unable to sustain that. That's what a sustainable development would be. So that would be the concern for me, at least. But that might be what Robbie's thinking.
We're not investing that.
Well, it says in here we're gonna pay for the dirt, for the 18 acres. We don't know what that cost is today, but we're agreeing to pay for it. We're gonna pay the developer back on his offsite, on his improvements. We don't know what that is, and we're gonna plan, permit, and fund the necessary money for the wastewater plant and the booster pump, and we don't know what that is. That's a lot of we don't know what that is, and those are all really expensive things. And not that I don't like the idea, it's that I just don't like the idea of voting on something that I don't know the number. Is that common practice?
There's no vote today, sir. This is the first reading, and
right.
this is the kind of
But
feedback that we
there won't
want.
be a number, when we vote on it again, there won't be a number either. When we vote on it, so.
Well, if there's
that's not gonna change it.
clarifying language y'all would like to add, that's why we have the first reading, so please provide that. Yeah.
Well, again, is it common practice for a development agreement to read that way?
Okay. What is common practice is that if the developer invests money that benefits the entire system and their payment is contingent upon them doing the project and, quote, earning impact fees, that is a common practice. Because if they never get the project off the ground, then they never get reimbursed. And so the city is indirectly investing it by foregoing impact fees that they otherwise would have paid. And that is similar to what the city did with Sweet Bay, because if the city didn't go out and invest money and then the project fizzles and never gets paid back. Here, the developer invested and they're at risk. If they want to get paid back, then they've got to get out there and get their project off the ground and get impact fees paid. Second, this is unusual as far as reserving 18 acres for a future wastewater treatment plant. To my knowledge, the city's never done that. The city just recently, and we should be getting a report here in the next few months, was able to get a grant and did a study for future wastewater treatment in Panama City North and phasing out of the Millville water treatment plant. And so this identifies that that the developer would work with the city if the city wants to acquire 18 acres. There's not an obligation here for the city to acquire it, but it does set up a path. So if the city says, we really want these 18 acres because we really want to put future wastewater treatment up there, then this sets a path that you pay the fair market value of buying those 18 acres. But the city's not obligated to do it. But we came up, or working with Mr. Fuller, thought it was wise to go ahead and talk about it and make a path forward as far as to acquire it. But there's no obligation to acquire it. That is unusual that we even think ahead like that for future wastewater treatment in Panama City North.
But if we're required under 3F to commence within a year to plan and fund, that's going to require us to have a piece of dirt to put that on. So indirectly, there is a requirement to us to buy that 18 acres. And again, all that's a great idea. It's when are we going to know how many millions of dollars that we have to have? Well, we'll have to know in a year for at least the funding. We've got to know what that is, and it says that we have to have it available.
I have a couple suggestions.
Yes, please.
So one, I agree with Robbie. If we're going to actually start spending money on something, we should probably know how much it's going to take to cost. So I think we should lock in the purchase price now, or put a not to exceed number inside of that before we start expending city funds towards that effort. And then, my only comment, this is a very positive step forward. One of the things that in previous agreements that I've seen is the city will obligate capacity, and it may take 30 years to utilize that capacity. Well, that puts everything else on hold if there's any other property owner that chooses to, go and build a house or things like that. It's all tied up with one singular development. So what I would like to see us in the future move towards is capacity is reserved upon payment of your impact fees. And so that could either be done at the permitting level or it could be done prior to that. That way we're actually strengthening our reserves, and their capacity is reserved by paying it at that point in time. It's advantageous to the developer because they're able to pay. We all know costs escalate, and so they're able to reserve their capacity at today's rates versus having to do it 10 years from now when they'll most likely be higher. So those are the two things. I'm not saying that's necessarily this. I think the biggest thing that we need to hedge from inside of the contract now is just making sure we have either a not to exceed number or a locked in purchase price for the 18 acres before we start expending funds. That's what I would like to see.
And again, great idea, love the idea of the project, but there's an opportunity here to kind of redirect some of the Panama City North missteps when we were putting it together, like no fire, police, commercial, there's a whole bunch of stuff up there, and capacity. And so, but we weren't thinking that far ahead, I get it, 20 years ago. And I just want to make sure that we're not obligating ourselves to something there that we don't have the money for, and not going to have the money for, and that's not fair to the developer, and it's not fair to the citizens up there, because that's something we're working on. Because I think also in the agenda we're talking about scope and a line. They're the same dry line we're talking about for another 125 grand. So that's an expensive line up there, is what it's turning into.
Well, we're eventually going to have to use it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'd like for it to start making money.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Andrew Reinhardt is here. He's one of the managers of the company.
Yes, sir. I wanted to address, Andrew Reinhardt, representative for CBD Holdings, LLC. When it comes to, the whole intention of this is we wanted to work with you guys to get a path forward for this area of Panama City North. And when it comes to the purchase price fair market value of the land, we're more than willing to work with you guys so you guys aren't outlaying those funds up front, so that way you guys can work towards a wastewater treatment facility on this site if that's something the city chooses to move forward with. And we can donate the land, we can, get reimbursed with impact fee credits, whatever helps facilitate this on your end, we're more than willing to help accommodate. I just wanted to clarify.
Andrew, if I can ask you a question. So,
Yes, sir.
Have you guys taken the study that we've already started on the wastewater treatment plant? Is that how we're laying out this 18 acres? Is that how this came to be?
We heard through Mott McDonald they were completing a study that was going to be done at the beginning part of this year. I have not seen that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, but no, we heard that you guys were looking at this option, and we've got more than enough property to set aside for you guys if you wanted to have wastewater and booster pumping spot on our site. And if you guys choose to go in another direction, that's completely fine. We'll just reserve it back into our community.
I think it's a great idea. I think the only thing I'm hearing today is just maybe some certainty on price.
Absolutely.
I think it's perfectly acceptable if you guys want to lock it in today as impact fee credits, that's fine. But so that we don't have to expend funds at this currently, but just,
Sure.
Fair market value 20 years from now when we get that. And you know how long it takes to build any kind of even a package plant
Yes,
takes a
sir.
while to build. So I think we're just trying to protect ourselves from escalation. And ultimately, we want to honor whatever commitments we make to the development.
Absolutely.
Just as we want you guys to honor the same, so.
Yes, sir.
And Andrew, that's my big thing is when we say yes, I want us to be able to say yes 2 years from now, a year from now.
Yes, sir.
And the credit, if you're willing to donate the land and put a value on it, I would imagine through an MAI appraisal, and we transfer that into tap fees, 100%. If you're on board for that, I appreciate that. That helps everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Question about the timeline that the city would have to begin building the wastewater plant. When do we have to have the money to move forward with that, providing we move forward with this agreement?
I don't see Stacy here, but the issue is that the first 400 and some units does not need a wastewater treatment plant. And that's really what it's geared, this is geared to lock in those first 400 and some units so they can get off the ground with phase one and get the project rolling. And that will be done just by tapping in or connecting to the existing system. As far as the timeline for the wastewater treatment plant, it is driven by, I don't know, it says within a year you start planning and you start making progress. But the goal is that this wouldn't be just for their project, that it would also be sized for other projects up there. So that's a good question. We need to get a better answer than what I just gave you before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the comments.
I have just a question. Why does the county have to approve the issue before any, the
Traffic?
it has to work under the traffic plan?
Yeah, because
Because-
predominantly their roads, John Pitts,
Okay.
Star Avenue.
Okay.
And we've worked collaboratively, we've been meeting monthly with the county for the last
Uh-huh.
7 or 8 months on just, PC North in general.
Okay.
And that's, those are some of the issues we ran into the past, like with Liberty, the Liberty North development,
Okay.
Star Avenue, and so their requirements. And so, it's just something that they require, because the driveway permits come from the county.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And the developer did meet with the county as well and discuss the traffic study, so,
Very
or
good.
the traffic plan.
Thank you.
All right, do you have any other?
Okay, there's nothing to read here as far as the title, but this will conclude the first public hearing, take these comments and be able to address them by the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We are up to audience participation. Feel free to come forward and speak on any agenda item on this today's agenda. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and also state the agenda item that you're speaking on today. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Patty Sunday, 1115 Fairland. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I wanted to mark that we've lost 7 service members. That's that. Okay, the next agenda item, I'm sorry, I don't have it printed out. It's the part of the report with all the charts of the performance of the different departments. And specifically, I wanted to highlight 2 of them. which was in the housing department. It shows, this is from memory, maybe 190 calls, and I wondered if we might explore or share the qualitative and the breakout of that. Meaning, are those unique callers? Are those repeat callers? And then there's a thing that says referrals. And I think within the referrals and the qualitative callers is a lot of intellectual property about the services that the citizens may be asking for and/or the gap of the SKU that we may have so that we can direct resources to the appropriate place or something differently. I know when I was working, volunteering for some residents in Foxwood, and I worked with Commissioner Lucas on this, there were two that I replaced and needed a variety of services. And I probably called for each of those maybe 8 or 9 times plus email. So I don't know if those are unique visitors, and I think it would be very helpful to see those. The other one is on the ASAP after-school program. It just jumped out to me that the numbers seemed low. I wasn't able to look, and I'm thrilled about ASAP. I wasn't able to look up at the cost of delivering those services or if there might be a more efficient way. I drove last week to the MLK Center for the first time and was reminded of the proximity of ASAP to the MLK Center. And I know we're coming up on the budget workshop, which I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled about that. Jonathan, I wanted to thank you for calling me back so quickly in resolving the water issues last week, and same for you, Commissioner Josh and Commissioner Granger, for always calling me back so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Great suggestions. Yes, sir.
Walter P. Henry, 614 Maple Avenue, Panama City, Florida, 32401. I was discussing item 6A. I was listening, and I was just wondering, knew that somebody already said John Pitt is a county road. Really, all of that. As I know, I don't know if the city done took in John Pitt's part of the city of Panama City. I know on the other, further in, I don't know if this part of it, I heard someone say that it's a sewer that have water have already been sitting there. I don't know if that's the one I know of. On the other side of where y'all have the warehouse for the Port Panama City. I don't know if that's the property that you're talking about. Either way, it don't matter. Whoever, if a line is there already, it's a PVC line. The water line is PVC. The sewer is a PVC line. Whenever in that section, the city did put in water and sewer, and even put in a lift, put the pipe down. They did not put the pumps in, I don't believe, for a lift station. All of that is in the area that I know of. I don't know what area y'all know, but I just figure that we are, if it is, I think somebody need to tear the line out. It'd be cheaper to put a camera in it and check the lines. See, the line is still in good shape. Why you gonna take out a good line that you don't know, unless you know yourself that this line was not put in correctly and got roots in it. It's hard to believe. Roots will go in anything if it got a leak. Can't have a leak because ain't no water never been through it. It's a dry line. Been a dry line that y'all said for 20 years. I I've been retired over 20 years here. I mean, this section that you're talking about is something that happened after I retired. But still, I think you need to check that line before you tear it out.
Sir, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on down. Good morning. Good morning.
Item 10D, Mayor Branch, Commissioners. I want to begin by returning to the moment.
Name and address for the record.
I'm sorry?
Name and address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
James Lee, 1620 Fountain Avenue, Panama City, Florida, 32405. Mayor Branch, Commissioners. I want to begin by returning to the moment that this park, Oak Grove Park, came into existence. In 1962, the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Board, Mr. Dan Trumbull, appeared before the City Commission with a request. He asked the city to purchase approximately 5 acres of land next to the Oak Grove School for use as a park for the residents of that neighborhood. He made it clear that these people had no park available to them. That statement is not just a piece of history, it is the city's original intent, recorded in its own proceedings. The land was purchased deliberately to meet a specific need in the Hill and Oak Grove communities. It was meant to correct a lack of recreational access and to guarantee that this neighborhood had its own public park. For more than 60 years, that purpose has guided how the park has been used. It has been a neighborhood field, a place for children to play, and a gathering place for the people it was created to serve. Even as the activities on the field have changed over time, the mission has remained the same. This park exists because the city recognized that this community needed and deserved its own recreation space. As you consider decisions today about access, scheduling, or exclusive use, the 1962 record gives us a clear standard. Any policy that limits community access or shifts control away from the neighborhood must be weighed against the purpose the city itself established when it purchased this land. And that brings us to the proposals before you now. Whether the discussion is about long-term exclusive use, private control, control of scheduling, or limited when neighborhood residents can use the field, these decisions directly affect the very purpose for which this land was acquired. The Commission in 1962 made a commitment to ensure that this community would have a park of its own. The question before you today is whether the choices made now will continue to honor that commitment or move the park away from the purpose it was originally created to fulfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good morning.
Good morning. Forgive me, I'm gonna have to speak pretty fast. Hello and good morning. My name is Carter Dye of 22620 Sunset Ave, and I'm here today to ask that voting on agenda item 10D be delayed until after a community meeting is held to get feedback on the proposed plan. This is important because more people that this will affect deserve to have their voice heard. This in no way is something that I feel is unimportant. It absolutely is important, and I thank you all for putting this report together. That being said, this delay is essential as the report this plan was made on has several inaccuracies. Further, the proposed plan itself is impossible to regulate and would require a significant increase in government involvement from the current status quo. Allow me to explain. Let's begin with the report. My organization of St. Andrews is listed on the report as using Craft Field, a field we have never used even once. Further, it does not show the $400+ that St. Andrews Soccer has made in rental payments, as well as the payment made to rent Oakland Terrace last year. Considering this report is being used to guide policy about field access and fee structures, I feel it is incredibly important to ensure the underlying data is correct. Moving on to the proposal itself, there are a few issues I would like to point out that may cause confusion or administrative difficulties, some of which are going to be administrative impossibilities. Firstly, Category 3 has a list of requirements, including coaching background checks, proof of nonprofit status, etc. Yet, Category 4 lists none of these, even though they should too be required. Secondly, this plan would require disclosing registration data to a government organization, making a vast amount of personal information, largely about children, accessible to anyone. This is a huge breach of privacy that could easily be avoided by using a third-party auditor. Now for the administrative difficulties. Category 3 differentiates itself from Category 4 through a lack of tryouts and a guarantee of playing time. So I ask, who will be sent to the fields every day to watch every team and make sure every kid plays? Further, Categories 3 and 4 require greater than 75% of participants to have a Panama City residency. Firstly, this would be very easy to forge and almost impossible to verify. And it also says majority and then 75%, when to me, a simple 51% would also represent a majority. Why the city limit and not Bay County? Why not rewrite this to include some neighboring cities? As in my eyes, the community members that live just outside of the Panama City limits, but frequent Panama City, should be represented as a part of the community. The current status quo of simply providing proof of nonprofit status is simple and verifiable, unlike the proposed plan. Further, everyone could be expected to pay, or every nonprofit could have fees waived with the verifiable promise of something like a scholarship fund for Panama City residents put in place. For these reasons, I ask once again that the Commission holds off on passing this plan until more opinions have been heard and data is ensured to be accurate. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other comments related to anything else on the agenda today? Okay, seeing none, I'm closing public comments for the day. We are moving to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda, except for item 8E? That was removed.
Move to accept the consent agenda with the exception of item 8B.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We are down to item 9A. Mr. Granger, you are up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a resolution that I would like the commission's support on, primarily impacting citizens of Ward 3, but also other citizens in other wards as well. And what I see this is this is a look back to correct the wrongs of the past when it comes to the water billing. So I'll remind everybody that the city was billing people at an estimated rate without letting them know that it was an estimated rate. And in a lot of brand new build homes, they were being billed $38 a month for 2 years. And then all of a sudden it was, hey, we've installed the antenna on your meter and now you have a $2,000 water bill. Because you've been racking up all of this money over time and nobody reached out to tell you about it. And we've since fixed that. So the city moving forward as of October of 2025 had fixed the policy so that right now if it happens, people have a policy by which they can get relief. But from July 1st, 2023, which is the first time anybody ever brought this problem to me that I can go back and look and remember, to October 28th, 2025, no one was able to provide relief. And all this does is it just looks back for that specific amount of time and is able to provide relief in the form of a credit to their current bill. Now, if they've moved away, then they've moved away. There's you know, we're cutting ties and there's nothing we can do. We can't. So I've structured this as such so that Brandy and team that it's not going to be overbearing to them to have to go back and do all this research, that it puts it back on the citizen and says, hey, you have to come in and request this credit and that you have to meet these specific criteria. So with that, I'll entertain any questions unless somebody would like to motion to pass it.
Why August 2025? I get one a day. But my most recent one is we went from $89 to $440 in a water bill problem, but that was 2 weeks ago. So why is the end date August 2025 as opposed to now?
October October 28th, 2025. And the reason for that is because that's when this commission passed a new resolution to allow the team to have other tools.
Okay.
So
Okay.
prior to that, it was just, got to pay your bill. And that's it. There's no like, well, hey, I'm not even sure this is my bill. If you had a dispute, too bad. You got to pay your bill. Whereas this recognizes that, we didn't necessarily do, in my opinion, what was right during this time period, and it tries to correct that.
And 100% I'm on board for that. From October 25 through now, the toolkit that you have, because it's still happening.
Yes, we
What-
still have estimated
Right,
bills.
so when that bill turns and jumps, and it's not estimated anymore, and it's a bill that's been in existence since 25, but is just now changing from estimated and going up, how are we helping that person?
That's the policy y'all adopted back
Back
on
in what he's talking
October
about.
28th,
Okay.
the high bill policy where they can get an adjustment for an excessive
Like one
bill
time,
that's
right?
been estimated.
Okay.
But the first step was telling people they were estimated, right? I mean, so now on the water bill, it says estimated, and it's, whereas before, it didn't say that at all.
Well, and interestingly too, in new construction, we don't have a checkbox to turn on water only.
Yeah.
That's being worked on.
And we can handle that through another resolution.
Right, well, or change the computer program.
Yeah.
But your point is, your new construction, and then all of a sudden it jumps up. It's interesting because most of Sweet Bay would have been turned on, all of the services would have been being charged, even and estimated under construction, even though they shouldn't have been, they should only be water. So why the massive jump in water when in that time frame, really the city's charging full services and we weren't telling the contractor?
So generally, I mean, just everybody's situation is slightly different, but the overarching issue that I saw that happened was new build home, they're estimated, and because the computer program did not have any prior service records,
Okay.
it estimated them at what is the bare minimum, which
Right.
is $38.75 or something like that, every month.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally had a couple of constituents who moved up from down South Florida where they bill all of your water at the end of the year on your taxes. And then they hit you with kind of like a smaller amount here, during the month. And so they just assumed that that's what was happening here, $38 a month for water. They were like, that's kind of normal where we came from. And so they didn't think anything about it. And we weren't telling them that it was estimated. So they didn't think to say, hey, city, this is kind of low, right? Because they weren't from around here. And even if we did have somebody who said, hey, this is kind of weird, the city didn't really have a good way to bring them up, you know what I mean? To bring them to kind of correct their bill moving forward. So yeah, it was a very big surprise when all these MXUs went in, which are the antennas, and then many people in the neighborhood had bills that exceeded $1,000.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's a huge surprise. That's a big surprise.
Especially when it's on automatic draft and you're
Yeah.
not told and it just shows up.
Yes.
It'll wipe some accounts out.
Yes.
No, I'm in favor, yes, sir.
I like it. I just don't know how widespread the problem. I don't get many water bill issues. I think it's probably your ward mostly gets those. And so I'm unaware of how vast the problem actually is that we're solving for. But I do like the idea of arming staff with policies where they don't get yelled at as often.
Josh has a lot, you have a lot in your ward.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
That's very often. Any place where we've got major infrastructure changes happening,
Yeah.
that's where you start to see it.
Yeah.
What I do want to say is, we passed this policy in October. We've got a revision to it. I still firmly believe that it is within the clerk and the treasurer's power to resolve disputed bills.
Me too.
And so we're creating policy that, yes, gives clarity possibly to staff, but when we have a clear delineation that there's a piece of equipment that belongs to the city that's faulty, or through some action of a meter replacement, we damage something else, or all of these things that constantly happen. I do believe that good leadership is resolve it without having to create further regulations on top of that. And so, you know, if this is helpful, Brandy, from a clarity perspective, that I'm fully supportive. But I do want to make sure that when we're making decisions on how, water and sewer is an enterprise fund. It is one of the very few things that operate as a city that almost operates like a business-like environment. And so we have to take into account how much it costs to go through collections, how much is in dispute, how many times are we responding to emails, how many times are we picking up the phone, how many times are those things, because there have been bills that have percolated up to here that we spent way more money on in debate than we ever would have in just resolving that particular issue. And so, you know, if this is helpful from a clarity perspective, but I do want to make sure, even though there is a policy in place, that it's understood that leadership in the clerk and treasurer's position has the empowerment to be able to resolve disputed bills. And it's especially important in areas where we have a clearly defined piece of equipment or overarching software issue, or these things, to resolve these in a way that do not frustrate our citizens.
I agree.
100%. You know, not just, it's a payment plan. You can negotiate that deal. You know, it's, if we didn't do our job right, why should we expect you to jump up and say, let me give you 100% right now, this is a great idea. You know, and that's, to me, negotiating with the citizen is a way better idea than setting policy, because now you're adhering to this without, if you don't have the right word in there, Brandon's hands are tied.
So I kind of see this as maybe the minimum, but, you know, Brandy, while you're in the position, whoever we end up hiring next to be in your position, I just want to make sure it's very clear that while you have guidelines here, like, this is not the only thing, the only tool in your tool chest to resolve issues for our citizens.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, that this runs similar to a business, because in my mind, I've never gone into a business, purchased something for an agreed upon price, and then as I was leaving, they chased after me and said, actually, that's 15 times the amount of money.
You ever been on a cruise?
You know, I've never gone and bought a shirt and said, you know, okay, I'll pay $25 for this shirt, and walked out, and they said, actually, that's a $250 shirt after you've paid for it. I've never had that kind of situation before, and to me, that seems like what we've done to these citizens is, because we're the only water. They don't have a choice. Right?
Monopoly.
We're the monopoly, but that doesn't mean we have to act like a monopoly. That doesn't mean we have to act like, you know, oh, the water went through the meter, you know, so therefore you have to pay for it. Yes, the water went through the meter, but at the same time, we weren't doing everything in our power to make sure that they understood that how much money, when they opened the tap, how much money it was.
Well, the one that gets me is, well, it was estimated, but here's how many gallons you use. If it's estimated, how can you tell me how many gallons I used?
Well, it'll say, I think 1,000, there's a minimum for before it starts to charge you. I think it's 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, so the meter continues to track, it's just the transmissions that's the issue. So we have the last reading, it comes back online, we have the new reading, and we assume that you had been maybe used 200,000 gallons, and we find out instead you actually had 300,000 gallons come through that time. That's how we know. I think the only thing I would want some clarity on, and Ms. Waldron and I have talked about this quite a bit, because it does involve a shared effort between both the operational side and the clerk treasurer side, is, you know, is there, because we do have examples where, you know, it's not really disputed, the customer just doesn't agree, but even though we've gone out, we've checked the meter, the MXU's working correctly, the meter's working correctly, there's no leak on our side, and they're just not happy with the additional cost and, you know, we ask, what, you know, did you have a leak or anything like that? So I guess my question would be, is there a threshold? Because I agree with you, it's not worth quibbling over $200, or sorry, $20, but I mean, is there a threshold? I mean, at some point, you know, if you push back hard enough as a, and this has happened to me. I had a toilet that leaked one time, and I had to pay the bill because the water came through my meter. I guess my question is there some point where if staff has looked at everything and everything is working in order and we believe that the money is owed, and again, we've inspected everything, is there a threshold where it's like, okay, just drop it if it's under $100 or $50? Because, our answer is going to be, we believe that the money is justifiably owed to the city of Panama City. But if someone gets frustrated enough, we just say, okay, fine, we'll just waive it. I worry about some of the ambiguity. I don't know if there's some guardrails to protect staff.
That's Josh's point. That's where the clerk gets to negotiate, and they work out that deal with that citizen, and it might be waived, it might be 50%, it might be 100, but them having that authority to make that citizen happy, maybe we collect some money, maybe we don't. But if we walk out of here with, you by God, I got to do it this way, they're going to walk out unhappy.
So I think the clarity that I would bring is it's the same way in private sector business, how it would operate. There comes a point in time if somebody is a repeat offender of frustrating, becoming, and they're just a bad customer. Like, if you can clearly show that, then I think that's the point where it's no longer reasonable. And I don't think there's anybody on this board that would have any problem supporting somebody that is constantly coming back in and back in and back in and just making up a complaint. But that's not really what I have never experienced somebody in the 5 years that I've been here that has come and they just keep coming back over and over and over again over a different issue each time. It's been more or less like, hey, I'm not really happy with this resolve. Well, there comes a point in time where you have to take into account, is the juice worth the squeeze? And you have to say, okay, we're going to resolve this. But understand, if this keeps repeating, like we're kind of done. And, and we do have the right, as even though we're a monopoly, that we can say, hey, look, I'm sorry, there's no more resolve here. So it's pay your bill and we're done kind of talking to this. You can come each time, but it's not going to change the outcome. But I have not experienced that. I've experienced more or less, there's a dispute, somebody feels it's one way, somebody feels it's another way, and we kind of have to get to what Commissioner Hughes is saying. We got to get to a happy medium in that. And I would my guideline would be more along repeat offense. Is this issue continuing to occur more than somebody that's shown up once in 3 years? The last frustrations that we did, which was a conversation we had about this, it was automatic bill pay that ultimately was getting some attention. Mm-hmm. And those are our best customers. We don't ever hear from them. They're so automatic, they didn't even realize that, hey, the bill wasn't happening. So I just think customer service, top of mind, just like any other business. If somebody kept going into Chick-fil-A and they kept saying hey, I need a free sandwich, at some point in time, you just look at them and say, I'm sorry, we can't work with you anymore. You're better suited someplace else.
So
that clarity is helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Granger is looking for us to potentially approve this resolution today.
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
Actually, I do have a statement. I think the conversation that we've just had has been good dialogue. However, this is basically a 60-day opportunity, correct? It sunsets in 60 days.
Yes.
So it's 2 months. And anyone who had a problem between the specific time period has 60 days, should this pass, from now, to come in and say they've had a problem and they meet this criteria and we pay them or credit them for their water issues. And as I understand it, it's an attempt to correct something that's been done in the past. And we've already put in motion something to correct future actions because we did that in October. So do we have any idea about how much we're talking about here, about how many folk are, because this is citywide, about how many folk are affected?
I don't.
So, I mean, the math, we haven't done the math on that quite yet, but because of the constraints of this, it's going to preclude somebody who had maybe a $200 extra water bill because it does use the same criteria as the policy that we put forth. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you're only going to see kind of the wave tops, the folks that got really hit with over $1,000 water bill, that kind of thing. I would be very surprised if we actually credit back, $10,000 or more. I really don't, I think it's gonna be a handful of people, to be honest with you. But I still think it's something that we should do because it's the right thing to do.
Do you want to make the 60 days longer?
No, I just want to clarify what we're talking about, because our dialogue had begun to shift to a greater concern than what is actually before us, so.
Okay. Any other discussion on the resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas,
Yes.
Commissioner Granger,
Yes.
Commissioner Street,
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commission is approved. Resolution number 2020-60310.5, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Panama City providing for water utility bill credits for excessive charges causing an undue financial burden on account holders.
Item 9B. Josh Street, you're up.
Yep, so obviously, we know it's kind of funny. We've all voted on this. It's gone multiple times at the federal government. We had a portion of our legislative delegation that's still pushing this. I'd love for us to pass a resolution just in support of the elimination of time change and just send it to our legislative body, everybody that we can, just in hopes that they'll continue to push it forward, because
Truly takes
I don't know
a lot
about
to
you guys, but I don't like it.
Neither. I'm with you. I
So-
like that it was pitch black dark at 6:30 this morning.
What was really interesting in the history lesson, the city had the opportunity to adopt daylight savings time before the actual nation did back in 1961 or 62, and we chose to reject that, but then Lyndon B. Johnson in 1966 forced everybody to do it. So it's kind of like our own statement of like, we want our freedom back. So anyway.
Somehow it works in Arizona and Alaska, but it can't work in the 19 other states that. have
Widely
actually-
supported. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just us passing a resolution just to give our legislative delegation up in DC the extra ammunition to keep pushing.
I like it. I will, if there's any, I will entertain a motion to accept.
What are we accepting?
We'll send a letter to legislation in DC.
There's a resolution that's attached to this item.
Reissuing the same resolution or creating a new resolution?
This is a new one. There wasn't a resolution that was adopted in the 60s. This is just more or less us reiterating our support for the Sunshine Protection Act that was passed in 2018 and communicating to our legislative delegation that we would like them to continue to pursue and urging the United States Congress to amend federal law to authorize the state of Florida to observe daylight savings time year-round by eliminating the biannual clock changes.
Jumping on Coach Tuberville's train.
Yep, we're just jumping on board to add our support.
I'll motion to approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second that.
Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
10A.
Okay, I will read the title, and is the number 2020-60310.6? I believe that's the number, okay. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Panama City, Florida, expressing support for the State of Florida Sunshine Protection Act and urging the United States Congress to amend a federal law to authorize year-round daylight savings time, providing for transmittal and providing an effective date.
Right. Item 10A is discussion and consideration of the city clerk treasurer recruiting efforts. As background information, as requested by the commission, the following are some options that provide for effective internal recruiting efforts for the city clerk treasurer position to reduce expenses and increase overall efficiency. And I know this is very similar to the process followed for the city manager vacancy back in 2023, 2024. You have a memo enclosed from HR Director Vicki Lewis showing all the different organizations that our city regularly engages with where we could post such a job. And then we have how to process potential applications, setting up the interview process, reference checks, and background check. Additionally, a draft job description was circulated to the commission. week and a half ago for y'all to provide feedback. We did get feedback. It was added to your location on the dais this morning from Commissioner Street with green, blue, and red, just kind of some of the legends that of the changes that he made. But staff is just presenting these options as requested by the commission to discuss the job description itself and how to move forward with the overall process of advertising, sorting and presenting any applications, and then setting up the interview process. If desired, HR Director Vicki Lewis is able to answer any questions that you may have today. She does have decades of experience recruiting high-level executive positions. So, Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Yeah, just for clarification, the item that, the packet that we received this morning, Josh, Commissioner Street's changes are in red.
There is a legend on.
Yeah, look on the last page, sir.
Last
Yeah.
page. The
If I
red
could-
is the stuff
To
that
take those
he,
out.
If I could offer some feedback, I was able to talk to Ms. Lewis, and my removal of items from it was not because I'm opposed to those items. It was more or less just trying to condense more than anything. I have no issue with putting those in and leaving those in. Really, more of my changes were focused around customer service aspects, the use of technology. You know, there's a vastly different approach to governmental finance that's coming in the future and now, utilizing whether it be AI or other tools. I want to make sure that we get somebody that's focused customer service delivery and can really operate as a CFO for the city. That was really what more of my focus was. But I have no apprehension about any of the things that Vicki had put in and put back in the red. It was more or less that, and she has since told me it's not uncommon for there to be a very long job description for positions of this nature.
Mr. Mayor, hearing that, I would move that we approve the job description that's come to us with edits as highlighted in its entirety.
Okay, do I have a second?
Would you be willing to add in that, that the staff has a budget of $1,500 to put this out there and move forward with it?
What's the 1,500?
It's
you need
in
that?
these recruiting sites.
it's in the memorandum
Oh,
of the different, so we'll approve this and then also tell them to go put it out there. And then the $1,500 budget allows them to,
Okay. Yes.
and I'll second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Real quick, so we're approving this
In
As
its
written.
entirety.
in its entirety and the cost to get onto these sites.
Yes.
All right.
Instead of using a recruiter.
Huh?
Instead of using a recruiter.
Yes, sir, exactly. Now, does that include, if we're including these sites, that has nothing to do with the options on the interview process back in here? That's just for these sites on the memorandum, right? We're not, nothing in here is incorporated.
This is application, job description, and
Okay.
and advertising.
That would be a separate item for y'all.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
Yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, moving forward.
What about the process? Do y'all
Yeah.
want to discuss
Yeah, that's
that
the
later?
next thing
Yeah,
to
that's-
discuss.
I like option 3. The way Jonathan described it to me, he said, do you want 75 applications sent to you or just 5 of the top ones? I said, I'll take 5.
If you guys could just supply us in a digital form, the rest of them, for us to review, and that way if we did see somebody that we wanted to bring forward, we could. But I do agree, I think when we get to a ranking side, that hey, 5 of the top would be good, and if you guys would help us in the narrowing down of that, that'd be great.
So respectfully, I think y'all are going to have to vote because I can't just send 80 to 2 of y'all and only 10 to 3 of you. I think we got to send everything. So either y'all want everything we get or, I mean, Mr. Zimmerman, please
What was
jump
your
in.
ask, Josh?
So I'm just wanting a record of what the 80 were. That's really all it. I'm not asking for.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move option 1 for the application presentation, and then option 3 for the interview process.
Go for a second.
So does that mean we're not going to have access to any of the other applications?
Option 1 under B, application presentation, you would get all of them,
Okay.
but they would be sorted by staff. And
That's fine.
you would get all of them though, by does not meet qualifications, meets minimum
That's what I was
qualifications.
saying. That's why, Nevin just whispered it's public record, so I can get them. I got really confused. I was like, is somebody gonna keep me from getting? Like, am I limiting myself? Okay, I understand. I'll second.
Okay, I want to make sure we're clear though on the interview process for option
What?
3. So you guys will have all of them, but in option 3, each commission member will rank their top 5 from 1 to 5, so.
So that could
So is that
require
what you-
rounds.
I got what
Right,
you're
that's
saying.
what-
So what
I
you're
got what
saying is, under 3, yeah, you
like
can have
3.
5, I can have,
Totally different vibe.
That is what happened in the city manager recruitment process.
And then that narrows the field down, and then we
Well-
just do it again, and then it narrows the field down until we come to.
I've never done this before, so is that a good way or a bad way to do
I
it?
think the only thing I'll say, and I will say this, and this just comes from previous experience. We did have members that maybe didn't look at like that somebody was arrested and they got kicked off their council, and like I mean like there's things that it does expose you to, is like if you're doing the ranking that maybe staff would have already vetted through in that. So just to kind of keep that in mind, if we are going to be part of the original narrowing, 80 applications, you're going to have some crazy ones in there. And so just make sure if we're part of that sorting process that you don't get crazy.
Well, if y'all.
Do we even need to have
Please don't
ones
pick
that don't even
crazy.
meet qualifications then?
So I would just say that this body is charged with hiring 3 individuals.
Yeah.
And the city clerk treasurer is one of those 3 individuals.
Yes, ma'am.
So we should look at everything, we should be an integral part of the process, which is why I made this suggestion.
Okay.
Now, as is the case on everything that comes before us, each of us has the choice as to how deeply we delve
Yeah.
into whatever. But it is our responsibility. These are one of the 3 charter offices, and we are charged with hiring them.
I'll second your motion.
Yeah. Any discussion? What she said.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 10B is consideration of approval of resolution number 2026031.0.1 in support of the city's grant application to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Agencies, or DEP, Florida Boating Improvement Program, FBIP. As background information, at the December 10th, 2024 City Commission meeting, the commission voted to issue a task order to design and permit improvements and expansion of the downtown Marina boat ramp. This effort was undertaken with the understanding that grant applications are more successful with shovel-ready, fully designed plans. The city is ready to reapply for the FBIP grant. This application requires a resolution of support from this body. Staff recommendation through the Director of PCR is that the commission adopt Resolution 202600127, I don't think that's the right one. It's 2026031.1, in support of the city's application to FDEP's FBIP grant. Mr. Mayor?
I will entertain a motion. Motion to
So
approve.
moved to get
Second.
conversation.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Well, question, how much is the grant for? It doesn't say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to your asks. I mean, they have a bucket. We can, they may give you 200, they may give you 750, they may give you 500. We
Okay, but
don't know. We compete for
What's the
it.
total amount we get to ask for? If let's say there's $1 million, do we get to ask for 500 or do we get to ask for 250?
I mean, we would ask for the max. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to limit
Is
ourselves.
this the same one where the county got some last year and we didn't because we asked for the max and we asked for more and they didn't, I think?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay.
I'm not aware if
Well, a lot
we're
of
getting a
this-
boat
Would this
ramp
be a good
grant.
time for me to also bring up, we have a full set of plans and permit and we could build the boat ramp right now.
That's why we're asking now.
No. We could just, since we just voted to spend money that we don't have anyway, that we don't know what we're gonna spend, we have the access to the money to maybe spend $2 million or something on a boat ramp where we already have plans and a permit. I was just saying, you know, I'll just keep bringing that up at each meeting until I catch traction on it. How about that?
The last time we asked for this grant, we didn't have full plans.
Exactly.
And-
That's right. That's
And that
right.
was some feedback that we'd received from
Yeah.
them was shovel-ready projects are prioritized.
And I think it was around 750 was the number, if I remember correctly. But yes, sir, I'm in favor of it.
We have a motion.
We do, a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, looking back at the city clerk treasurer, we had several things before us. We only addressed the interview, the application presentation and the interview process. There was also suggestions for reference checks and background check that we did not address. So I need to ask if that is standard procedure, or is that something this body needs to address?
That's standard, as far as that would be part of the background information that staff would provide
Okay.
to
so
the
we're good.
commission.
You don't need a motion?
No, that's
Would
pretty
you like
standard.
us to do that on all applicants or just once you narrow it down?
I'd say top 5. That way you're not having to look up 300 people.
Yeah, the other reason
However-
for that is sometimes people are putting in their application and their supervisor or their council or commission may not know that. So
Vicky
I
has some-
think that's what Vicky
If I
meant.
may, Vicki Lewis, Human Resources Director. To Commissioner Street's point, if we do reference checks on people you're not seriously going to interview, we're going to cost good people jobs. So I wouldn't recommend that until this body coalesces around your top 3 or your top 5 candidates. And then at that point in time, let us do reference checks and backgrounds, and we bring that back to you then.
Do those people realize that when their application goes in, it's a public document?
They do realize that, that is
Okay.
acknowledged on the application, but
Okay.
I would say their
But it's not
employer
really
has to
drawn-
know to look here.
Right,
The
right.
second we call a reference, their employer now knows.
Right.
And we, again, could cause good folks in Iowa, the Carolinas, New York, wherever they may be, we could cause them problems, whereas their current employer wouldn't know they're looking unless we call references.
Understood. Yeah.
That's my recommendation, is to hold on that piece.
Do you need a motion? or-
No, sir, not on that piece. I think that would come back to you unless you disagree, Mr. Hayes.
All good, ma'am.
Works for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to read the resolution that we just adopted, local support, resolution of local support, resolution number 2026-0310.1, that relates to the the Florida Boating Improvement Program.
Item 10C is consideration of Budget Amendment Resolution 2026-0310.2 and Task Order Number 4 from the Integrity Group or TIG, for FEMA Public Assistance Programmatic Management Support for Hurricane Michael projects not to exceed $50,000. Relevant background information is enclosed in your packet. Staff recommendation through the Development Services Department is that Commission approve Budget Amendment Resolution 2026-0310.2 and Task Order Number 4 to the Integrity Group in the amount not to exceed $50,000. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Well, yeah. I don't have this in my book. So, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes
My mom
5-0.
decided to take care of my book over here, so.
I'd like to read the resolution number 2026-0310.2, a resolution providing for the amendment of the approved fiscal year 25 budget to utilize Hurricane Michael settlement proceeds for the Integrity Group Task Order 4.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
All right.
So that's supposed to go here.
Yes, and then this goes in.
right back.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, item 10D is the report on the athletic field and facility usage and sport organization recommendations from our Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department. As background information, in advance of the upcoming 2026 sports seasons, the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department, or PCR, has received field requests from various groups, new and old, seeking field space at various city parks. As such, Panama City's athletic fields are experiencing rising demand from city programs, youth organizations, club and travel teams, as well as adult leagues. Current practices through permits, prioritization, and fees should evolve to ensure equitable access, financial sustainability, and field quality. During the February 10th, 2026 Commission meeting, the St. Andrews Soccer Club requested a fee waiver of rental fees for the use of Oak Grove Field at Robert Mary Kane Park for their spring season practices on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., February 17th through May 15th of this year. Commission approved the waiver of the fees for this period and directed staff to provide a report on athletic field usage, detailing usage fees over the past several years. Attached is the report requested detailing all athletic field uses for the period of 2023 through 2026 year to date, accompanied by a summary of these findings with recommendations on the athletic field use by sport organization type. Again, this report is provided at your request. Staff does recommend adoption of the sport organization terms and rental fees. And Mr. Keith Meyerl, the director of the PCR department, prepared this report and is able to answer any questions that the commission may have. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, when I was looking through this document, impressed by the amount of details, but I also, when I saw the list of people that use the fields, I thought, how many phone calls am I going to get for this change of policy? Like, well, I used to pay $9 and now I pay $12.50 or nothing, and now I pay something. And so some of the comments earlier were about, have we reached out to the people affected and saying, here's what your new payment could be based on this new policy, would be my first question.
Yeah.
To the commission, to the mayor, we have not had those intimate conversations like that. There have been some general conversations, yes.
So in your report, I think the soccer club had come and said that they had never rented Craft Field, so I was just curious about that. Well, is that, like, do you have a historical record, or?
We use a database system to record all of our field rentals, Civic Rec. We also had one for about a year. It was called Sports Engine. So there may just be some data in there that's inaccurate, but it would have been a general. It's very specific, but that might just be a data entry error for that particular location.
How far back was the change between one system to
This
another?
goes back to 2023.
So but when did you change from one of those systems to the other one, do you know?
That, the Sports Engine was used last year in 2025, and we've ended that and continue to use our Civic Rec platform.
And you used the Civic Rec before that as
Yes,
well?
yes. So staff had tried this Sports Engine as a trial, and we have decided that that's not the direction we want to go.
Yeah, I guess one of the problems that I have is that, I mean, there's a lot of data on this report, and one of the problems is that if the data is only as good as as it is truthful, and so kind of to your point, if we move forward with this today, we're going to get a lot of phone calls, and it's based off of a report that you have just said it could have data that's not accurate.
I would go back and double check what the gentleman said earlier, just to confirm that, but we have it in our record that they used Craft Field, and they said that they didn't. It might have been a one-time use, because we record anything that gets submitted as a reservation, a field request.
Yeah, or just simply a user error or accident, like a clerical issue.
That's what I'm thinking.
And it might have been used a year and a half ago. I mean, I kind of feel like that's a ding against the soccer team because they seem to be in the mix right now.
No, it's not a ding. I'm just saying is that was something that was brought up.
Right.
To say, hey, this isn't accurate.
Right.
And so my question then is if that is true, that this isn't accurate, and he has said that there is some data in here that is not accurate.
Right. Right.
Well, then we may find out that, Southern Elite Sports actually did pay for their 496 reservations.
Right.
That's my point,
Right.
right? Like,
Yes.
I'm not meaning to call them out. I'm just saying is that there's, to your
Well,
point,
so,
we're going to get a lot of phone calls on this,
Yeah.
and
Well,
they
and
may say, well,
A
wait
good
second.
next step might be just verifying the data from the people that have rented before and give them the hypothetical scenario of like, this is what you might pay, so they're not surprised by something. And so verifying and then telling them what the path forward. And yeah, I think that's.
But I agree with the suggestion coming from the citizen this morning about a community meeting. There are a lot of people affected, as we see here. And I think for me, the impetus isn't the phone calls. It is, let's work together and jointly make the decisions. We've just gone through this with the MLK Junior Rec Center, and I think that helped us to forge a agreement or a consensus, if you will, of understanding. And this raises a lot of questions about how we've made decisions in the past. And I imagine that any citizen who's looking at this, who's rented fields and so forth, has questions as well. And so this is an opportunity for us, I think, to have those kind of conversations, community dialogues, and perhaps by ward rather than, trying to have a big, all y'all come to one big meeting kind of thing. But I would yield to city management process direction.
And to citizens' point this morning, why do we need to know about the kids and their players and their names and where they live? If an organization is renting and they're following the rules to rent it, does it matter if they live at the beach or if they live in Panama City, whoever's on the team?
I would say it would matter only to the organization. If we're going to give a discount to any organization, then that organization should be incorporated in the city limits of Panama City. But I agree with you on the kids.
The player though, the child,
Yeah.
why do we need family and child information or participant information?
Agreed.
If the corporation, organization qualifies?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because then you are creating public record issues.
Right.
So, and just in general, we collected $27,000 in total for all the uses.
Yeah.
I immediately thought like, wow, these documents probably cost us $27,000 of stuff.
Since 2021, keep that in mind.
Yeah, so it's
That
like,
was
we're
since
spending a lot of money
2021.
creating a cathedral program
A lot of
to
documents.
collect very
Since
little
2020.
money.
But
Yeah.
there's
23?
also a lot of
That's a 21 on
dashes
top.
where there wasn't
correct.
payments collected.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that I'm advocating to collect a lot of money, I just thought that, is the juice worth the squeeze and, is there savings of collecting the money and we just waive some fee? I mean, I don't know. It's just $27,000 for this organization is nothing.
But it,
Over the course of that time.
Especially over the course of that time.
So my question is, I understand we've got a specific issue we're problem solving in one aspect, but overarching from a policy perspective, what are we trying to solve? I understand that we have some facilities that aren't being maintained well enough to be able to facilitate youth sports. So at what point in time are we going to get a number that's associated with maintenance at Frank Nelson for soccer? If it's, Kraft Field, whatever it is for youth sports. So we actually know, like, it's hard for me to say, this is what everybody should pay without knowing the actual cost of what it takes to maintain the field at the level of what is required to do said usage. So does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes, sir.
It does, and it makes sense that if we're going to allow for some to pay and allow for some not to pay, that there's some criterion. So I think when we start looking at, for instance, the tax exempt status, that's a way of clarifying nonprofit from a third-party organization. When we start looking at number of players from City of Panama City, are we really giving a support to our city? And so those kinds of things, this is a first draft, a rough draft. And I think to get us where we need to be, And it should be inclusive of what Commissioner Street has just said about what does it cost us? Because part of the quandary we're in now is that we don't have a soccer field at our soccer complex that can be used for soccer. And so to avoid that in the future, we've got to maintain it. We've got to maintain our fields. And understandably, you know, we haven't just been ignoring fields. I mean, we've been rebuilding a city. And so now that we've got the urgency and the time, I think it's time to move forward.
And I think we have two, like, we have the baseball field in Millville, and we have, and Sudeth in the Cove. There's two fields that we have put money into. You want to know what $2 million looks like for a baseball field, go to Sudeth, that's what it looks like. What's it costing us to maintain that in that condition? And by the way, nobody that's my age played in a baseball field as nice as that anywhere around here. So what's it costing us to maintain that? Because that gives us kind of a good, like you're talking about, benchmark just on something that we have existing. And it's not as big as, say, Oak Grove or say Frank Nelson, but it gives us something to think about. You know, and that would be helpful to have that information coming back. I agree with you.
And on Sudeth Park, I believe we had quite a bit of investment from that neighborhood or that community in the Cove into that park. So some areas are able to be made nicer because of the donations of the folks who are in that community. And I think as a part of this, that pathway for any neighborhood or any community to be able to donate and support parks ought to be clear as well.
Could we, going into, we've got a budget workshop, I think, at the end of the month. Is that enough time for you guys to have a budget number associated with each park on its maintenance? And one question, is that part of the evaluation that's going on with our Parks and Rec committee as far as the actual cost associated with the park? Because if I'm just going to give you an example. If we've got a park that, you know, is literally no maintenance cost, offloading it is not going to really change anything budgetarily. Is that part of the evaluation process? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Mr. Jones could probably speak to that, or Mr. Mefford.
I can speak to both. So in regards to the budget workshop, yes, that is very doable to get that information. We've already compiled that and are kind of parsing that right now. We have, back to Frank Nelson, we've already made significant improvements on that soccer field, so we're moving in that direction. And that method will be implemented at other fields like Daffin and other fields throughout the city.
Do you have a timeline on when Frank Nelson should be ready? I did drive by it after on Saturday, and I can definitely see it's getting better. I just don't know that it's ready for play or not.
Yeah,
what have you done to it?
I'm sorry.
What have you done to it?
We've top dressed it, aerated it. We've done a weed and feed, and we're in a period now. We just need let that weed and feed kind of take place, and then we're going to do an overseed with the Bermuda.
Okay.
So that's very shortcoming.
All right,
I think.
so we get that done and we move, and the soccer team goes over there. When can we start focusing on putting money into Oak Grove and you know, turning it up and and filling it in?
In a similar time frame.
Okay.
So, you know, it's kind of that rotation idea. I mean, you can't do it while there are teams actively using the field. So once if it's St. Andrews is able to move to Frank Nelson, then we would be able to start that same process over at Oak Grove.
Okay.
So on here you have common practices for field rental fees, and you list out PCB, Bay County, and City of Lynn Haven. And then in section 5, you go into recommended organization categories. And so my question is, are these organization categories based on what PCB, Bay County, and City of Lynn Haven do?
It's more national standards through NRPA. Is what organizations through the NRPA, which is the National Parks Recreation Association, that does nationally.
Okay, so then I guess the follow-up question would be, does PCB, Bay County, or City of Lynn Haven, in your research, did you find where they do this organization categories?
They do. Some of them do, yes.
Okay.
Some more broadly, some more narrowly, but they do, yes, sir. As well as also Fort Walton.
What other discussion or questions can we answer as we discuss item 10D? Do you have what you need from us to keep proceeding with more drafts and information, potential meetings with the public and with these organizations, verification data,
I'd just like for,
cost estimates?
we have a tendency to kind of get overbearing sometimes. I'd like for us to kind of look through and maybe if we can not have to require as much, just one item here, one item there. I don't have any specific yet, but I'll use the example of the family information or the player information. I would just ask that we look for making it easier to apply and do the application process is something that I think we ought to focus on when we're going through this, because we're very application-driven and fee-driven and document-driven, as the mayor was pointing out a minute ago, and the less we can have to still get to the same result, I would like for us to try to focus on that. I hear a lot about that from the citizens. They're wearing out my hand trying to get everything filled out and signed up.
Yeah, so I think, Mr. Mayor, to answer your question, obviously your park system in any city or county is going to be heavily subsidized. So I think the question is how do we get, get to a point where we kind of have, some of the issues that we're dealing with, an equitable use of the fields. If the purpose is not to say, and I'll just pick a number, it costs $4 million to operate our park, so how are we going to fully fund that with outside fees? I don't believe that's the desire of this body. And so then the question is, well, how do you pick them? And that's when you look at national standards, you look at some of your regional, numbers to try to make sure that you're equitable in that, to that end. And then, and I think the degree to which the commission would be comfortable with the fees is knowing that maintenance cost and how much of that we want to try to cover with a fee-driven program. And again, making sure that there is very specific criteria, very similar to how we did our special events, where we do allow organizations or teams or anybody to use a field in a very organized manner for sports without any additional cost to the city. I think that's where, and I agree, I don't want to just add pages to forms, but there is, I think if you look back over the history, we haven't been formal enough, and that's what's put us partially in this position today. So I think there's a balance to that we have to take.
So I think a good rule of thumb, similar to water billing, like if, we're an organization that has about $140 million worth of expenses every year, a lot of that primarily in utilities. If we have a fee structure that is not generating more than $50,000 a year, I don't know that it's worth the administration to actually do anything. So there's probably a minimum requirement to be able to associate the actual labor involvement of maintaining a fee structure that needs to have a threshold. Because, if I'm looking back till 2021, that's 5 years, and the fees have generated $27,103.99. That's like $5,000 a year. We spent way more than that in staffing and conversations and all of those things.
To make this book.
But I'd also acknowledge that our fields aren't being maintained at the level of what they need to. So that needs to be part of our budget conversation of we're already subsidizing everything, but we're also getting virtually a very substandard product at the end of it. So, is there a willingness with youth sports and others to help in that regard? And if so, there needs to be a number associated with that. Otherwise, if you were asking me to vote on this fee structure today, I'd be voting to remove it because it's de minimis as far as the impact it's actually making to the department, and the overall strain on administration is not worth this amount of, and the phone calls that would come. So I would look at that from the perspective of come up with a structure that either makes a substantial impact or one that we can clearly notate what parks require what maintenance and what's the cost of providing that maintenance. So we can
because
subsidize
of the parks, I've been asking this question, and the biggest pushback I have is from my mother. I can test everything between my mom and dad. It's great. I said, Mom, on your water bill today, you can give $1 to the parks. Can you do that? No. Why not? Because I don't know where it's going to go. Oh. said, well, if you knew that you were going to give $1 and it was going to go to the walking park, which is 3 blocks down the road from you on Balboa, would you do it? Yeah, all day long. So I started asking that question about if you live near this park where I live in the Cove, or would you? And I get a resounding yes, because they know that $1 is going to go to that park. Now that can be an administrative nightmare to ask. If you live in this area, your water bill is going to go out with an extra $1 on it, or and rather than it become a choice, it is $1 that goes to the parks. Real fast, you're going to start building up some funds that everybody in that community right there is helping take care of that park along with the city. Because at the same time, we have to remember, if we're going to raise, to make the parks be in the best shape, we're going to put that on the backs of the people just using it through fees, you're going to really have to jack those fees up. And I agree with you. We don't need to do that.
I think that's a great point. So the $1, there's 18-something thousand dollar water accounts. It's $18,000 a month if everybody even did it.
That's right.
And so probably even in that, there needs to be evaluation. Is $1 actually making the impact of the administration that's required to execute the dollar? Should it be $10 and maybe there's fewer people that do it, but they're actually making an actual impact with what it is? So, and that's voluntary, by the way. That's not a tax.
Right now it is, but if you said $1, okay, you live in St. Andrews, you've got 2 parks down Truesdale Park, and you know that $1 every month, you're going to give the city $18 next year in water, and it's going to go to those parks only in Truesdale and Oaks by the Bay. That way, as a citizen, you know that money's going to that. And now that community gets to help have more of a voice in how that money is spent because they contributed to it. And they feel better about it. They're still going to get an opportunity, whether they do it or not, they still get the opportunity. But now they have skin in the game. And when you have skin in the game, now you'll show up and start participating too.
I paid my $1.
I paid my $1. I paid my $18.
Which 5% went to processing fee.
Right.
And then to track it for a park, we've got another 40 cents that went to that.
$1 goes into that account, $1 goes to that account.
So I think you can hear a potential willingness of different funding mechanisms that are creative as well.
So I'm in favor of charging anybody who wants to use the fields something. I still am. I realize that there is I understand you're looking at this from a financial standpoint, and I totally get that and understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with that. If we're going to do something that needs to be worth doing. But I'm looking at this from a Ward 3 perspective, and we have 3 parks in Ward 3. And 1 park is a large park. It's a walking park. There's not a whole lot of, there's some equipment there, some workout equipment. It's a nice park. But the other 2 parks don't have much of anything there. I got a swing set in Chapman, and there's a gazebo in Venetian Villa Sunset Park. And so all of my constituents are paying for all the subsidization, and we've got 1 major park to work with here. So I'm fine with charging everybody something if they want to use and cause more maintenance to be had at a park. I'm okay with that.
Like a walking pass, like you want to use the walking
park.
park.
No, I'm saying if you want to reserve the walking park, which I guess you could reserve it for like a walkathon or something like that. It's hard to really run fast on because it's got some hairpin turns, but
I think the structure, to Brian's point, I agree with it. I'm not opposed to people paying for exclusive use of field. The issue is it just needs to be substantial enough to actually make an impact, and we can actually maintain it. So
I like what you've presented here. I would take out of it the requirement for the rosters. I don't want anything that would create a public record to give a bunch of addresses for a bunch of kids. Unless the state of Florida and sunshine laws allow for that to be, for security purposes, for that to be not a public record, which I'm not sure if that
They are. That type of personal information can be redacted.
Okay, so if that can be, if that answers the public record piece, I know there's some pretty evil people out there that could get hold of that information. I really don't want that to be a public record type situation. But yeah,
Can I put a motion on the floor?
Under the certification for compliance.
Yes, please.
Number 5, the organization agrees to provide verification of compliance with the City of Panama City Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department upon reasonable request. Papers, please. Really? You approved me. I gave you all my documents. You said yes. Should I gotta walk around with my papers so that I can verify that what you told me I'm allowed to do, that I'm allowed to do? It's things like that that rub the citizen the wrong way.
Which one are you pointing
I'm
at?
I'm on the last page on certification of compliance.
Proof of nonprofit?
No,
I think he's talking number 7.
the very back, last page, on the very back of the packet.
Certification of compliance.
Certification of compliance.
Last page.
And then, organization understands and agrees that the department reserves the right to audit compliance, including requesting information. If we've gone through that to get them to allow the use of the field, why do we need to go back and check on them? Why do we need to go back and,
Why would you
what are we
not
doing?
reserve the
What are we
right
doing?
to double check that? We had in the past, we had a nonprofit or a board that was used for abuse. So we changed our policies to make sure that any other nonprofits that we work with, that we look at their, if we're doing financial stuff with them, that we look at their financials so that that doesn't happen again.
And sir, we also.
I'm not saying that that's what's happening
Right,
here. I'm just
right,
saying
right.
is that
Right.
why wouldn't you reserve the right to look?
We also want to make sure that coaches that we're being told are coaching have actually gone through background checks.
But that says it up top, you can do that. All those things have to happen up front, okay? In order for us to say, okay, you can use this, you can have this use of this park. What this is saying is, that later on, I've got to be able to provide my papers. Just a little overreaching to me.
So it's mid-season, and the
Okay.
coaches we started with have changed out.
Fair.
So,
And they didn't tell the city.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair.
or they didn't get they didn't get coaches that were background
Okay.
checked, for
Okay.
example,
That's
with this example.
Yeah.
I think that we have a good foundation. It has shown us questions that we've all addressed here at the dais this morning. And I think what I'm hearing from my colleagues is a revenue model that gets us something. I hear minimum 50,000 if we're not getting that. Just doing some quick math, if we take all of the uses and multiply it by minimal fee, we're 2-3 times more than what we actually brought in. So yes, Houston, there is a problem. But there's also sentiment expressed about, making sure that youth get the opportunity. So maybe that's one level. Adults who play, maybe that's another level. Travel leagues, maybe that's another level. And then it's just accountability to make sure that we don't have something in place and then we're looking the other way and people do what they want. And then I heard a strong, let's make sure we at least cover the cost of maintenance for our parks and allow residents in neighborhoods to be able to know that what they're giving on their park fee is going to help a park near them.
I believe I heard a motion coming.
On that, I just motion that I think good framework motion to table pending public meeting, as well as our budget workshop to come.
Second.
Any
Third.
discussion? Any discussion?
I'm too angry.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes
Good
5-0.
report, Keith. Good job, man.
Thank you, everyone.
A lot of information there.
Item 10E is consideration to approve work order for CCTV inspection of the gravity sewer mains located in SRF Phase 2 areas to be performed by CBC Construction in the amount of $151,153.60. As background information, closed-circuit television camera or CCTV inspection of gravity sewer mains will be performed on Phase 2 SRF areas where these lines were originally planned for full replacement. By conducting CCTV inspections first, the city can determine the actual condition of the pipes. If the CCTV shows that the lines are in good shape, they can be lined instead of replaced, reducing cost overall and allowing additional repairs to be completed within the remaining SRF funds. Staff recommendation to the Director of Public Works is that the commission approve this. This will be done by SRF funds. And just as a quick aside, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is exactly what we did in Area H. You look on your screen. So we would look to do this in Area A 11, 12, and 13, as well as Area QR 1, 2, and 3, and then Area P 11 and 12. So we just did it in Ward 3, and now we look to do it in both Wards 1, 4, and 2. Mr. Mayor?
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Please call. You gotta be a little quicker, Robbie.
I know, you're
Come
moving
on.
faster than I am today, sorry, Mayor. Okay, so we're gonna inspect the lines of all these areas. You're talking about on the.
In the green,
heat
sir,
map.
with the exception of D21 and H. That's already been done.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe a smidge more background. So we actually had a little bit of money kind of come in, which basically allowed us to pull D21 and Area H kind of into Phase 1. Originally we were hoping to get additional funds, and really at the same time that we started all these SRF projects, more of the brown areas or the tan areas that you see on there, that's SRF Phase 1. It was right around the time that inflation took off, construction expenses skyrocketed, we started seeing supply chain challenges, and so we didn't quite get as far. And so we did get an additional roughly $20 million. You guys approved that probably last fall, maybe the early part of the winter, to move forward. So what we're trying to do is maximize those dollars in order to, again, get as much done as we can. And again, in the area A11, 12, 13, or also known as area A1, again, the Q area and then the P area there in the very northwest part of the cove, getting into downtown.
Like, for example, in P12 and 11 on Cherry Street, well, we redid Cherry Street. Why are we scoping those lines when we put everything in new?
Well, we wouldn't be doing those. That's just the southern line, sir. It would be everything north of Cherry Street up to, what is that, Watson,
Okay, so-
or Massena Bayou, and then the second
I got
place,
you.
I think. Yeah, that's just the southern line.
Okay.
Can we update this graphic to show things that have already been done? I
That
mean,
would be helpful.
I'm not calling for a new heat map study, just an update of
Yeah.
the graphic.
Yeah, and I think you guys were gonna bring back to us on a previous of what it would take to engineer and design the remaining heat
Yes.
map components. So I'm looking at G, J, K, M, N, V, W,
QR 1, 2, and 3,
Y and Z.
D3,
Where-
D22, yeah, all of those. like-
X, and
Yep. So
Y.
if we could get a number so that we know what we're working towards, that would be helpful.
X is under
So the V and the W, you want to know on those?
Just to get them shovel ready,
Yeah, okay.
basically.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 10F is consideration for approval and execution of a vacant land contract with George Roberts in the amount of $80,000 for the residential property located at 1433 West 10th Court with parcel ID number 19404-000-000. As background information, on December 16th, 2025, the commission requested that staff task Corcoran Reverie to complete a market analysis, list the property for sale on the open market, then negotiate the best deal possible for the city. On February 2nd, 2026, staff collaborated with Corcoran Reverie to list a vacant property, vacant residential property that is at 1433 West 10th Court with the prior mentioned parcel number. After securing a market analysis, soliciting the highest and best offers from interested parties, 5 offers were received ranging from $61,000 to $80,000. Staff recommend approving and executing a vacant land contract with the highest bidder, amount offered at $80,000. Net seller's proceeds are estimated to be $74,640 after closing costs, fees, and real estate commission of $4,800. Staff request for approval and execution of the contract with George Roberts in the amount of $80,000. Budget impact, revenue, and reimbursement is to be deposited into the Housing and Community Services Department Fund as the original purchaser of this parcel. Mr. Mayor?
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have
A second?
I'm gonna talk.
There you go.
Why do we need to give 36 months for somebody to perform on a residential lot? Item number 7.
I mean, that's been the direction that we've been going as a body. I mean, if I'm going to sell a
Because the
lot,
way it's always been doesn't work for me.
no, that's actually something new.
No. When did we start doing 36 months?
Last several months. It's in the
No.
development, I'm telling you, sir, it's in the development agreement that we had the first readings on this morning. The parking lot efforts in St. Andrews, the same thing with Mr. Oaks over in Millville. If we're going to sell property, we're not just going to have it sit there and be empty. That's the direction this body's
I'd like for it
given.
to happen in 12 months, not 36.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
There's no reason to
You
go
wanna go-
36 months out.
I mean, we've been pretty
On a residential lot,
consistent.
you have one use.
Yeah.
There's no reason, there's no need for due diligence,
Yeah.
you know what's there, and you're either gonna build a house, you're not gonna build a house.
I have no objection to that. We've just been consistent because we kind of settled on 3 years, but I have no objection to.
I like it.
That's
Yeah,
the first question.
yeah.
Second question is, Nevin, why do we give statutory warranty deeds rather than special warranty deeds? Because have we picked them up in the past somewhere, and we've done the title work, so now we feel comfortable giving the statutory warranty deed since we've done the research on them?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
and there's title insurance that
Yes, sir.
yes,
All right.
supports it.
I come from the world where a buyer and seller go into a contract. There's no reason to assign contracts unless you're going to assign it to an LLC. And so what I do in there is I always say, yes, it's assignable as long as the buyer's 50 plus 1% in that LLC, it keeps them from flipping it. I just want to make sure that here we have may assign but not be released from liability. Assignment can get funky. These are just things that come up that can slow things down, or I just like for us to consider. I'm not going to ask to change that. Like for us to consider going forward, unless there's a need, our contract should not be assignable unless it's going to go to an LLC.
That seems overreaching.
You like that word, but it's not. It's protecting. It's protecting the customer.
Well, it protects us from looking like because this town's so small, if someone buys a property from us and they get a good deal.
That's
and then
right.
and it makes us look bad. Like, why'd you sell it to somebody that, not saying that he's going to, I'm
That's
just
right.
saying in theory.
That's right.
I do see that as a protection mechanism for us of not being like,
Right.
look what you did.
I mean, if it's out on the open market, anybody could have bought it, right?
Yeah.
You can, but you can buy, when you're buying from government, you're typically buying better than you are in the open market, okay?
But this was on the open market, right?
To the private market, that's different. We're a different seller than a homeowner or a property owner.
So this wasn't on the open market?
It is on the open market, there's a for sale sign in there, but we are a different.
Is it a different open market than the one that people
Yes,
normally use?
it is. Dealing with a government sale is different than dealing with a private owner.
Yeah, because we're usually harder to deal with.
Harder to deal with, better deal with the government, let me put it that way, Tim, as a general rule.
So you're
But
saying that-
here's where this came from, Brian. In the early 2000s, what was happening is people were buying something and they were flipping it about 10 times, okay? And not that we're trying to keep people from flipping it, but what it does is that person, when they assign their position in it, we're now in business with somebody else, okay? And we're contracting and negotiating with somebody, okay? Now, they're having to pick up all of the terms and the requirements of the contract, but we don't know who that person is. We may or we may not, and there's no requirement on there for them to tell us who that is. It's a protection for the city. There can be, when it doesn't happen regularly, but when things go bad, they're pretty volcanic.
But you're not asking for that to
I'm
be-
not asking for that right now. I'm just
Okay.
asking for the 3
you-
years to go to 1.
Would you amend your motion to accommodate the 1 from 3?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we amend from 3 to 1 on timeframe to build, and that's the only one that I'd like to make a change.
I'll
to.
second.
Yes, sir.
Well, all right.
I just thought I'd go through the contract and talk about things.
Discussion on 36 months to 12 months.
So what happens if they don't build within 12 months?
City typically has the right to purchase the property back for the same price that was sold. Am I correct in that? Correct.
But no 5% on top of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like it. Any other discussion?
Is this a good price for this property?
Yes, sir, it is.
Just
As a matter of fact, go ahead and tell Jonathan, tell them what you told me yesterday.
Oh, yeah, when we went to auction, we originally got, I think, around 40,000, so we almost doubled our money going through the real estate process.
Whose suggestion was that to hire realtors? Oh, yeah, that's right.
But this was on
We
the
just
open
doubled the
market.
money for y'all. Hey, I didn't sell it, I just made that.
No, I meant, don't break your arm.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is, I mean, we obviously did have a conversation with the Realtor and with the buyer, and we said 3 years, which, again, because that's what we've used on the recent properties in the last 6 months. So we just were trying to be consistent. I mean, we can, I defer to the city attorney. I don't know if we can force the 1 year.
No.
Yeah.
This isn't signed, this isn't executed until we say yes.
Yeah, we can tell them, take it or leave it.
Yeah, my only point is that we can certainly make changes, but then we go back to the buyer to see
Yes,
if the
sir.
buyer
I
accepts
understand.
it.
I think this goes into, we've had conversations about being upfront with what our requirements are. I think staff's trying to be consistent.
I get it.
So my understanding is if we adopt this 12-month period, that we would be adopting this for other properties as well, as a standard.
Yes and no, but not necessarily, not necessarily.
He's making the distinction that it's a single household property, not.
So on single households that will require
Yes, sir,
12 months.
that would be a good standard for
That's
you.
why I support it.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, I think if it's a house, commercial could be different,
Right.
longer period of time.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
So to clarify, this change is not on this it is on this property or just going forward?
This property and going forward.
Okay.
That's
Does that
what I'd
motion-
like to do. Now, that's my motion. Y'all don't have to vote that
I'll
way.
second.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is signed
Third
by
amendment.
the buyer.
Right,
It's
not by
not
the
a
seller.
completed, executed contract, of course, that's what we're trying to do today, but.
Right.
Obviously, if we push back, then, you know, the buyer has the option to decline, and then we would probably go to.
The second.
So what was the second?
It was
offer?
pretty close. I mean, I don't know, it was a little bit under 80. I don't know the exact number. Is Mr. Self here?
Okay, I was just
You remember what the
trying to
second
cover
one
all
was?
bases.
75,000 was the second one.
This buyer's not going to push back tonight.
And just to be clear, he wouldn't have to be done. He just has to initiate the project, start moving
right.
dirt and getting it done. And,
That's fair.
and just as a quick reminder, you know, some of this really started when we put those parking lot, well, the grass lots for selling St. Andrews. And I and Commissioner Street, and, you know, we just heard overwhelming concern from the public. Hey, if you guys are going to sell parcels that you guys own, which we'd love if there's going to be something, but please don't just sell them and let them sit there for years on end, because if that's the case, y'all should just keep them. And so, you know, there's more of that has happened in downtown Panama City, and there was concern about that happening in residential areas and also in St. Andrews. So I think it's a fair concern raised by the citizens, and I think within 1 year, moving on a simple residential lot is reasonable. So.
Okay, any other discussion?
No more for me.
Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, item number 10G is consideration of approval for the Panama City Farmers Market sponsored by the Downtown Improvement Board to be held every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. from March 14th through June 30th on the 400 and 500 blocks of Harrison Avenue, July 1st through September 30th, 2026 on the 200 and 300 blocks of Harrison Avenue, and October 1st through December 31st of this year back to the 400 and 500 blocks of Harrison Avenue. This would include a road closure on Harrison Avenue in conjunction with the farmers market. For the Commission's consideration attaches the proposal submitted by the Downtown Improvement Board for the Panama City Farmers Market. The market is proposed to operate every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. as follows. Same date and blocks as I just previously mentioned. The corresponding site maps, if you'll go ahead and put those up, please, Mr. Schwartz, are here included as Exhibit A. Upon Commission approval of the proposed locations and schedule, the Downtown Improvement Board will submit separate special event permit applications for each designated time frame and location. It is staff's recommendation that we approve. However, I do want to be above reproach and just highlight the letter that is attached here at the very end of the item dated February 20th. This was included in the last meeting. A few downtown vendors or business owners did flag that the Downtown Improvement Board actually voted to do the rotation that is included in there, which includes one rotation through Mackenzie Park. However, I did raise some concerns about that at the last meeting. There is a general desire to try to keep Mackenzie Park open on Saturdays for special events. And at the end of the day, it is this body's decision, and where the authority lies as to when roads and parks are closed and held for special events. So, Mr. Mayor?
Do I have a motion to approve?
Well, for discussion purposes, yes.
I'll second for discussion.
Yeah.
I have a question if I could, Robbie. I don't understand what is exactly happening. Is the permit match what the DIB is requesting?
No.
No.
Okay, the DIB is the permit requester. Why is that the case? I do not understand.
I think you're asking, have they formally modified the permit? I mean, I believe that they have, correct, Mr. Marwell? And what they're asking for is the rotation that I read in the agenda item.
So they're requesting, so why send us the letter again if your permit is stating you want to be on Harrison Avenue? It's putting us in a very awkward spot from an elected body. I'm trying to reflect what the DIB, which is made up of a board of business owners, reflect what they're asking, but it seems like they can't fill out a piece of paperwork the same way what they're requesting. And no offense, DIB, or if you're here, if there's anybody here today, but this is not normal. And
It's how important this thing is, and our phones blew up over this thing, and nobody's sitting in the audience, but.
They asked if they needed to come, and I believe I can communicate what they would like to do. And what I have shared in my agenda item is what the DIB would like to do.
I don't think that you ought to relay to us what the DIB wants to do. I think the DIB ought to relay to us what they want to do because they're their own voting body. And to Josh's point, we have a conflicting letter to go along with the permit, and that makes it difficult. But let me say this. Harrison Avenue was closed from 5th Street to Oak Avenue this Saturday, and it was killer. Okay, it was awesome. Okay. The merchants, there are a few that want to still keep it in McKenzie Park. It's really too big for McKenzie Park. And here's a good reason why we shouldn't. This weekend, we're having a bluegrass festival in McKenzie Park on Saturday that would not happen because if it was in rotation, the farmer's market would be there and preclude that from happening. Okay? So I agree 100% that we need to take McKenzie Park out of the rotation. There are a few merchants that disagree with that. They disagree with that based on the vote that happened more so than that didn't change, okay, from the DIB. Bill has been over backwards to help make this happen.
so does the permit reflect what you just said?
No.
Yes, except it does, except it does not do, I want it to be 3 months on, because this is what merchants really want. My motion would be 3 months on 400 and 500 block, and then 3 months on the 2 and 300 block.
So here's what I'm going to do.
No, McKenzie Park.
I'm going to step back out of this conversation. Like, I don't understand exactly what the full dynamic is. So I'll leave it to those of you guys that are more involved. It is confusing from a board member's perspective, like sitting here, when I have a conflicting letter and a conflicting permit from the same organization.
Yeah, so I'll clarify some more. Originally the DIB, I think I was on the board at the time, we brought the farmers market downtown like 2020. It was actually during COVID. We brought it to Gateway Park. And it was, the DIB has Gateway Park. And there was even some conversation before I think any of us were elected about how do we charge for events on Harrison Avenue, and it was nonprofits got a cheaper cost for it, and so the DIB said we'll sponsor the permits, we'll handle the permits, and really the goal of the DIB is to consolidate a vast amount of feedback that they get, just like ours is. Ours is to consolidate feedback. We hear it from lots of people, lots and lots of people, and so. What I think we're seeing is that Bill is willing and wanting to eventually entertain to pull his permits himself, and that the DIB has done a lot of consolidation and distillation of feedback, but it's still a lot of squabbling. And my stance is Harrison Avenue should be busy like this every day. Let's work that direction. And not every business should be on every road. Just like I wouldn't put an old folks home or someone that deals with senior living or elderly on Harrison Avenue where you don't have your own parking. And so I'm in support. What I think we've seen is Bill's, the application that's given is what Bill needs for the farmer's market. And he has made rotation of it. So I think what we're seeing here is what Bill wants. I worry that if we deviate from this, Bill's going to say, well, why'd you change it yet again? I haven't heard from Bill to say that your motion's what he needs. The rotation, honestly, for me, I don't really care if it's 1 week here, I don't even really care. As long as it stays on Harrison Avenue, I think that's the biggest. I want it to grow from 6th Street to Government Street.
There you go.
That's the goal.
Exactly.
And I told Bill, I said, find a plan to grow this thing as big as we can get it.
And can we make it so that they don't have to have a permit to go from the 400 block to the 300 block to get, when we're rotating? We know that here's going to be the pattern on every 90 days, whatever we come up with, so we don't have to go through that exercise every time.
Yeah, a lot of them, and this is fair enough too, even for me, every time a new business opens and for a new event, your inconvenience of like, oh, I normally park here when I go, even when I go home on a Saturday, I'm like, hey, I usually park right here and it's all busy. And so merchants are wanting predictability.
That's right.
And so that they can tell their employees like, hey, park over here or park over there. And so I worry about changes, sort of like audibles being changed where the merchants go, oh my gosh, I've been telling my customers that they can park here, and now everyone's. So I understand flexibility, and I want that for Bill to really grow his business, but I do want predictability for a lot of businesses. And there was confusion from downtown businesses thinking that the DIB's recommendation wasn't a recommendation, it was like they don't have that authority.
Right.
We have the authority to close.
All that was a vote by not their entire merchant population, and it was a recommendation to us. Yes, sir. Because we were there that day.
To try to compromise too, and keep in mind too, I just didn't want to be accused of not providing a letter that was communicated to me. However, afterwards, after the last meeting where I raised concerns by both PCR and the police department about, to Commissioner Hughes's point, McKenzie Park is really too tight for something like that. And we went and we got both city staff and the DIB and Mr. Davenport got together and talked through, and that's the recommendation before you today, and that's what the permit is for, 100% staying on Harrison. And Commissioner Hughes, what y'all would, the motion that's before you is through the end of this year. So there wouldn't be any more voting until what they decide to do starting in 2027.
But that's what's on the agenda item. Mine is, his is moving, this is 6 months or 7 months in one place. And I think that was kind of maybe driven by you a little bit because you said the data part of this, because we were down in the lower ends for so long. We can gather data in 30 days of is it positive or negative for the people moving, if it moves up and back. For example, does it hurt a weirdo that the food trucks are on Oak and Harrison?
You can put food trucks in front of my business.
Right, but what I'm saying is, other restaurants are feeling that a little bit, but I want them to be able to gather data on, because this Saturday, immediately, they'll be able to know, okay?
Yeah, well, I think I have an appetite for where I worry that this is not what Bill knows that's coming, nor a recommendation from the DAB, and now there's a third idea. I have a willingness to in future months to have more conversations to further refine this.
Well, we got to move it. We got to vote on something. We got to move it.
These are 3-month rotations, and Mr. Davenport is aware of this.
That's what I'm supportive of. Like, I'm worried about we're throwing a whole other idea in the mix, and then I'm going to get phone calls from Bill and the DIB going, we didn't ask for any of this. And I'm like, well, Robbie pushed this as Robbie's idea.
So I have 2 suggestions. First of all, I'm fine with the current rotation as is presented to us. One is looking at the farmer's market. The last time that I had went to one, there was a food truck that was running a generator, and we had put in electrical all up and down Harrison Avenue to prevent that from happening, to prevent generators from running on Harrison. And so I would say as we move forward that we make it a requirement that any event on Harrison that they're not allowed to have generators, that they have to use the electrical that is present and operational.
Except we didn't put those in the poles, did we? At the bottom of the base of the poles on the 400 and 500 block?
Hold on.
Or did we?
They're not at the base of the poles, they're under concrete covers.
Okay.
It does take some manpower and labor, which is in our event permit package, to charge for that.
Yeah.
We do have to bring an electrical panel out and hook it up. It is phase 3 electrical, so it is live.
Yeah.
It's not something that the average user could do, but I mean, I'm happy to.
We did it for a reason.
We put something in new to make it easier and better, and we're going to charge them for it.
Well,
So what we did was eliminate the need to drag electrical cables on top of the street, creating trip hazards.
Okay.
All up and down Harrison Avenue.
Okay.
We did this as an effort with the streetscape to make it easier and better for people to walk around, but it still requires an electrical panel to come out to connect to that underground connection, rather than stringing very expensive electrical cables up miles and.
So that rolling panel that we see, that one is you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's still staff effort and time into.
So we're charging for that, not for picking up so they can plug into the concrete and
They
the.
can't plug into the concrete.
It's reasonable to charge for a service like that. It is reasonable to do so. It just depends on what the amount that you're charging is for.
So
or the amount. So the second suggestion that I have is more zooming out away from the farmer's market and looking at just Harrison Avenue. And if we're approving this for every Saturday for here until, December 31st, then I would recommend that this body does not approve any other events other than, the Independence Day or Oktoberfest or some of the large ones that we normally already have planned to go on Harrison Avenue. Because we've heard from business owners who have said that closing down the street hurts their business. We've heard that.
No other day of the week.
But.
No, I'm just saying on
Just
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
On
Okay.
Saturdays.
But this past Saturday, we had two events going, and they coexisted at the same time.
Yeah, I would put that I'd put that we're passing a priority that the farmer's market gets, but
Right.
it's up to Bill to be collaborative like he was with Flux. With Flux, he said, okay, I'll move here, and that he created spaces for them. So I'm not opposed to that concept of what we don't want to do is pile on more traffic and it conflicts with farmer's market.
Yeah.
But I'd say leave it on Bill. I'd love to see a push more to less generators. I think that's a great thing. Let's push for that, and let's keep encouraging Bill to handle that. This is partially distillation of what the DIB has recommended and what Bill has asked for, which is why I want to push forward with this.
And staff
we iterate-
and staff concurs, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
and we can always iterate later if the data's coming back and be flexible.
These are good problems for us to work through because it means that the
Yes,
farmer's
they
market is
are.
being successful.
Yeah,
It means that people want to come to Harrison Avenue. It means that businesses are being successful on Harrison Avenue, which is great, right? But I'm just looking at it from the perspective of we chose certain parades that we will support, and we put that in our budget. And so I think we probably need to take a look at Harrison Avenue because it's becoming a very popular place. To kind of look at that in the same lens of like, what are we willing to commit to every year to close Harrison Avenue down? Because again, we kind of owe it to those business owners that, especially the ones who are telling us, hey, every time you close this down, I lose business, which isn't all of them, but it is some of them, right? And I just, I think it's worth the discussion at a later time.
I have no doubt that Bill will be flexible if the parade is coming.
Yes.
Especially if it's celebrating.
Yeah, obviously, that would be
And I did skip over it in the background, but just so that everyone is crystal clear, what is before you today is starting this coming Saturday, March 14th through June 30th, they will shift up to be from 4th Street to 6th Street, and then they'll jump back July 1 through September 30th, back down from Beach Drive up to 4th Street, and then starting October 1 through the end of the year, they'll go back to the 400 to 500 block, which is 4th to 6th, just to be clear.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion?
The motion is
Was
not
to
what
just
he just
discuss,
stated.
Yeah, so I'll
No,
retract my
I'm gonna
discussion.
retract my motion and accept staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept staff's recommendation. Do we have a second? I'll second it.
Okay, all right.
Well,
There you go.
I thought we had a second.
He retracted.
I retracted.
Oh, we're on a
my-
new
my
motion.
original.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm looking for you two guys' leadership
Right,
on
yeah,
that, so that's what
So
I'm really,
We're
Yep.
on the same page.
We got a
here.
first over
Second.
here. I can second too.
Oh, you can second. Well, second.
Does that,
You can have a second.
I'll take the second.
so does that include the generator thing, or?
I'd like to see Bill, I have no doubt Bill wants the same thing we want.
Okay.
So if
You're
staff
gonna
can work
let-
with,
You're gonna let Bill try to solve that problem first? I'm okay with that, I'm just
yeah, I
wanna
think
make sure
that's
I'm
a
clear.
staff and Bill.
I think staff's got clear direction to work it out with Bill.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas.
Yes.
Commissioner Granger.
Yes.
Commissioner Street.
yes.
Mayor Branch.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, item 10H is consideration of approval of for award of bid PC 26-002 for the Truesdale Park parking lot project in the amount of $257,636.80 to C Miles Construction Incorporated, and approval to enter into the attached contract and authorize the mayor to sign any and all documents necessary to complete the contract and project, and approval of a 10% project budget contingency of $25,763.68. As background information, the city solicited bids on October 23rd of 2025 to pave, stripe, and provide stormwater management for the Truesdale Park parking lot project. The city's engineering division designed the plans and worked with the purchasing and legal teams in the creation of the bid documents. The bids were closed at 2 p.m. on November 25th, 2025, and a total of 9 bids were received. American Sand and Asphalt Paving, BCL Civil Contractors, C Miles Construction, CW Roberts, ECSC, GCUC Inlet Construction and Engineering, Mainline Construction, and Marshall Brothers all submitted bids, with C Miles Construction being the lowest at $297,511.10. Following additional public feedback, the scope of the project was modified to reduce the parking area, and the same unit rates were used to calculate the cost of the reduced scope. The above-mentioned project now costs $257,636.80, includes constructing a 60 by 60-foot concrete pad for 2 future pickleball courts. The project is being funded using Hometown Revitalization Program funds through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Staff recommendation through the Director of Public Works is that the commission approve the approval of the award of the contract to C Miles Construction Incorporated in the amount of $257,636.80, and also approve the 10% contingency in the amount of $25,763.68 for a total budgeted project cost of $283,400.48. Mr. Mayor?
I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 10I is consideration to approve the MLK Junior Rec Center final federal change order of $289,467.50 and a non-federal change order of negative $25,579.04 for a net total of $263,888.46. As background information, the City Commission approved the contract with Burke Construction in the amount of $19,549,646.30 on January 23rd of 2024. Change order number 1 was a credit amount of $43.32, and it was approved at the July 22nd, 2025 Commission meeting. Change order number 2 was federal in the amount of $292,033.22, and non-federal city cost share scope of work was $29,310.83. This change order includes additional perimeter, fencing, security cameras, entryway gate systems, and a protective gym floor covering and extended general conditions. The final change order for the non-federal, which is the city's cost share, is a net negative of $25,579.04 and an increase in the federal scope of $289,467.50. That makes the total change order $263,888.46. The city's tax savings agreement for materials purchased was $92,620.61 non-federal and $254,228.99 federal, for a total tax savings of $346,849.60. The total FEMA grant for this project is $15,221,997.55, which includes all donor projects. Excess FEMA funds remaining on the project is $1,941,021.61. These excess funds can be applied to the non-federal eligible scope of work with FEMA's approval, further reducing the local cost share. The prior contract amount after change orders 1 and 2 is $19,812,325.43. With this change order, number 3, the contract amount will now be $20,099,018.46. The total non-federal cost is $6,267,283.20, and the total federal cost is $13,808,930.69. If approved by FEMA, the excess federal funding of $1,941,021.61 will reduce the total non-federal cost down to $4,432,648.81 from the $6,267,283.20. Staff recommendation through the Assistant City Manager's the Assistant City Manager is that the Commission approve the final federal and non-federal change orders and payment to Burke Construction Group in the amount of $288,080.25. Mr. Mayor?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I do want to make sure that we submit notice. This is the final piece on tariff reimbursements. It's very likely that FEMA will not reimburse the tariff request if there are any inside of the MLK project. And so we don't need to be at risk for that. The contractor needs to be at risk for that.
On this, how can it be more, you mean that we're still waiting on?
No.
Commissioner Street has talked to me about this, and that is tariffs that have already been paid and that we potentially would be able to be reimbursed for.
Oh, yeah.
That's the issue, and that issue is winding its way through courts, but the key is to stake your claim.
Yes.
Okay.
Because what I don't want to have happen is all of a sudden we get issued a bill from FEMA stating we want our tariff money back and we have no recourse to go and collect that.
Gotcha.
So
Makes sense.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I just want to say that on Friday, the city accepted the Apple of the Eye Award for this building, the Martin Luther King Recreation Center. And in accepting the award, I neglected to thank Burke Construction and acknowledge them for their role as well as the architect. So I just want to go on the record thanking Burke Construction for this building that they were able to build for us that is just a beautiful building that is now being greatly used by thousands of people in Panama City and surrounding neighborhoods.
I mean, it went from zero to full immediately. It was awesome.
Yes.
What are our accounts up to now? I know it was like 2,500 like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Are we at 3,000 by now? Not quite, but we're still north of 2,500 accounts set up.
Awesome. That's cool.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 10J is consideration to approve Martin Theater change order number 2 in the amount of $424,966.43, which includes a non-federal change order of $146,588.20 and a federal change order of $278,378.23. As background information, the City Commission approved a contract with Burke Construction in the amount of $32,985,842.00 on June 25th of 2024. Change order number 1 was an increase amount of $252,775.13 for federal only and was approved July 22nd of 2025. Change order number 2 for the non-federal or the city cost share is an increase of $146,588.20 and an increase in the federal scope of $252,775.13, reflecting a total change order of $424,966.43. The city's tax savings agreement for the purchases to date is $322,194.33. Change orders number 1 and 2 represent a 2% increase in the total contract value. The total FEMA grant for this project is $35,767,638.13, which includes the donor project from the PC Marina, which was approved by the City Commission on September 23rd of 2025. The prior contract amount after the change order, number 1, is $33,238,617.13. With this change order, number 2, the contract amount will be $33,663,583.56. The non-federal change order includes additional site work, underground utilities, and stormwater connections. The federal change order includes deductive items for electrical, elevator service, natural gas piping, and other items. Also included are additive items for structural steel changes, foundation modifications to eliminate foundation drains, and electrical changes and other additive work. Additionally, city staff has requested through the Florida Department of Emergency Management a one-time scope adjustment to use the additional funding to include items currently in the non-federal scope of work and rather than cover them in the federal scope of work. This will further drive down the non-federal scope cost borne by the city by approximately $1 million. Staff recommendation through the city manager's office is that the commission approve the final federal and non-federal change orders as laid out here and payment to Burke Construction Group in the amount of $424,966.43. Mr. Mayor?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Personally, I would like to see us go back through what we talked about in the virtual workshop. If we are pulling out things from both the offices and the other ones, there's potential savings to absorb $263,000.
Based on that virtual meeting, one of the people that was watching might be interested in this, reached out to staff and had a meeting with them about a lot of the comments that we made, good, bad, or indifferent. And staff is sending to them some plans to kind of help staff maybe identify some of the things we're talking about, pulling things out. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you guys, is let that play out. And they're taking advice from people who are in the business 20, 30 years, and they have a team that is going to help the staff. And it might solve some of those problems that you're talking about.
So do you want to table this until those conversations?
No, I'd like to pass it, but this you're talking about is attaching those
Funds
that
to
conversation to
offset
this.
this.
But at the same time, this is about just making a payment where the other is, they've kind of developed a timeline, if you will, right, Jared, to send out and maybe get some feedback.
Yes, sir, and I sent those plans to those folks yesterday after our conversation. This is all stuff, I wouldn't have brought it if it didn't need to move forward immediately. But what you guys discussed in the virtual workshop, I'm working both with the architect and the contractor to make movements in that direction. So like kitchen equipment, that's an 8-week lead item. I don't need to purchase that tomorrow. I mean,
So all of the savings that you would gain through that, you would
will
bring
happen
back to
throughout the
another,
project.
but you would bring back to another change order, but it would just be in the opposite direction, right?
Correct. You'd see,
Okay.
just like we entertained with the Martin Theater, you'd see deductive change orders on those sides, so.
And once you pay something, you really can't get it back.
Who's
So
the
I'll
other
just
group
say
that's
that.
working with staff?
It's a group out of St. Augustine.
Yeah, they operate the St. Augustine Amphitheater and their Fine and Performing Arts Center.
And the Ponte Vedra Concert Hall, which I would encourage y'all to go online and look at. It was a one building, $13 million renovation. We have three $32 million renovation. I like my averages. Bayhide did teach me how to do averages, so can't get that algebra.
Is that one of the areas we looked at, St. Augustine, for example, or they just called us out of the blue, or had we had an existing?
Commissioner Hughes out of the blue, and he connected us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
They
think the
had
mayor's had
not
contact
just-
with them as well. Great
yeah,
guys.
Not just their group, but also Willie Nelson's tour manager was part of that call.
Hmm.
So they had some interesting insight. So we've invited them here to tour the facility. I don't believe they realized how far along in the construction process we were, but we're going to get them up to speed very quickly. And then what flexibility we have with the request we've made with FDM already that's waiting on them, we'll continue to investigate that. So what I took away from the virtual workshop was move this forward, but move it forward with maximum amount of flexibility from where we are in the project for an operator.
Got it.
Yeah, when we remove things from the contract, it should be pretty simple to have a dollar, because we already have a dollar tag or a dollar amount assigned to those line items. So
Correct.
you should be able to bring back another change order, reducing the contract by those amounts.
Well,
Right?
and to be clear, like if I'm gonna build a full commercial kitchen in the facility, it's gonna be more expensive, but you'll see deducts for all the warming kitchen equipment. So, but hopefully that'll all be covered in the federal scope, and you shouldn't see that as relates to the local cost share. The local cost share stuff is just for site work that's outside of the EHP footprint, so we shouldn't see any more local cost shares.
And in other words, to what Jared's saying, it's still not resonating to get to a net zero, quit increasing the contract. So, that's why, I'll be dissenting in this one, so.
You're trying to get to net zero where?
That's, stop increasing the contract amount.
Okay.
Like, that's really, it's pretty
All right.
simple.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
No.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. Item 10K is consideration to approve additional construction administration services and associated budget amendment resolution 2026-0310.3 to DAG Architects in the amount of $493,500. As background information, the City Commission approved DAG Architects, or just DAG's, basic service fees at the December 4th, 2024 Commission meeting in the amount of $733,528.00. These fees were based on the original proposed approximate 18-month construction period. DAG originally started construction administration services on July 22nd, 2024. To cover the remaining construction period with a substantial completion date of September 15th, 2027, the project will require an additional 20 months of CA services at a not-to-exceed cost of $493,500, or $23,500 per month, which is fully FEMA reimbursable. Staff recommendation through the City Manager's Office is that the Commission approve the proposal for additional construction administration services and Budget Amendment Resolution 2026-0310.3 in the amount of $493,500. Mr. Mayor?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Go on to me.
Yes, I can support this, but only if we use the same format that we used with Integrity, which is in $50,000 increments, so that we keep a very strict timeline on the cost. And so that doesn't prevent staff or them from doing their job. It's just they have to come back to us every time they need more than $50,000, which is the same thing we did with Integrity. I don't know why we would extend for 18 months if we could try to consolidate that timeline. And so this keeps that on the top of the mind. It also doesn't commit us to having to finish out the project with a specific vendor if we can't find savings and other things.
Do we need to amend the motions?
Yeah, it would require an amendment to the
Any
motion.
willingness to amend your motions?
So is this money for future or
This is for future.
behind?
This is for future.
Yeah,
For
this
future.
is CA services needed to get us through September 2027.
Why is it in government, project supervisor becomes construction advisor? You know, it's,
This is used in public and private projects, this type of construction administration for architects and engineers, so.
but
this
CA,
one-
I'm talking the terminology, it gets different in government. I'm cool with it, I just, you know, and I like your idea, but does that mean it has to come back to us every time?
No.
Every 2 months.
Every 2
Oh,
months?
yes.
It does? Yeah, if we continue on. And here's why it's important. We went through a period of time with a specific subcontractor that we still work with in a much more limited format, where they were requesting, staff was requesting large budget amendments for future expenses. So there was no consolidation requirement on keeping that restrained, and we ended up with large expenses at the very end. What we've done with Integrity is a model to use moving forward of saying, hey, look, we're going to extend you, but we're going to extend you by this amount, and then come back with us another budget resolution so that we keep an eye on the cost as it moves forward. That's it.
So in 2 months, they come back, we give them $50,000 more dollars.
Same thing as they do with Integrity.
Okay,
So that's it.
all right. They keep doing their job, we keep paying them money.
I think the only difference is I think the 50,000 with Integrity will last much longer than 2 months, just to be clear. So we wouldn't be back in 2 months with Integrity.
Okay, so do we need to make that
Do you accept the friendly amendment?
Yeah, I do, yeah, I'm
And
good with
I'll
that, yeah,
accept it.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
basically just wanting to
Yeah.
watch the burn rate.
Just watch the burn.
I like it.
That's it.
Yeah,
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
yes,
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
And we'll make an adjustment to the budget amendment for 50,000.
Staff report.
Oh, Nevin. I'm
I'd like to
sorry,
read
Mr.
the,
Zimmerman.
Oh, that was everything.
I'd like to read the resolution. It's resolution number 2026-0310.3, a resolution providing for the budgeting of capital funds.
All right, item 10L is just simply our monthly staff report for the city manager's monthly operational report. This is through the end of January. and includes both fiscal year date as well as the month of January's data. We added a couple of line items in here, and we'll start adding the number of employees overall. Well, we provided it overall, but we'll start showing it by breakdown of by each department. But staff's able to answer any questions that you may have about this data. And if there's anything that you'd like to see us add, please do let us know. So Commissioner Lucas had us add a couple line items.
I like the report and the information, but you're showing us the money we take in, but does that mean each one of these departments is up in revenue, or are you expensing out a bunch of stuff, we're hitting net zero? $86,000 in warehouse item issued value, I don't know what that is, but, you got another one over here of $108,000 in fees collected in building services. That's great, but what does that mean for the department? Is it up? Is it net neutral? Are we losing money?
Financial
Yeah,
report.
the monthly financial report that was included in the
Right.
consent agenda will go more into the budget and actuals, what we went over at the virtual a couple.
Right, but if it's a line item that we can throw in there it's just showing us our expenses too. I mean, it's good you're showing us revenues. Do we want to talk about expenses? I don't know. It's a snapshot of only income and incoming calls and positive, and it's great. I love it. Is there something in there that shows us, are we doing okay? And I guess I'll just have to refer to the more detailed report. Okay. But good job, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. This report's great, so this has been a very nice addition.
How about number of emails, Jonathan?
And y'all are busy. How about the number and what time they come in?
Number of
4:30 in the
text
morning.
messages from elected officials I get every day.
So on your,
Maybe at 11 o'clock at night or something?
Yes, sir.
And he'll answer late too.
on your asphalt installed tons, you have, in this last month, we've done 76.9 tons of asphalt. Does that include SRF or is that in-house crews?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer to that. Mr. Murphy?
That's fine. Go ahead.
That's in-house.
Wow.
I'm
That's a
sorry,
lot of
where are
tons.
you referring to?
Page
Street?
4.
Asphalt installed.
Near
in
the bottom.
city.
Oh, page 4. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Wow, that's a lot. And then 50 tons of concrete.
Well, and to Robbie's point, it kind of mimics Patty Sunday's suggestion on with ASAP. We have numbers, but we don't have a full picture of things. And so I think revisions to this information is very interesting because it is a limited snapshot of a full picture of what you're seeing. Revenue is a hard one to track. Active programs are good. Like how much money have we done out in grants might be another one. So I'd say as you're looking at the report, feel free to send feedback. So yeah, metrics, there's a term called vanity metrics, which is like a nice to have, but doesn't actually help you make decisions. And we don't want to have vanity metrics. So we want to have actionable data that we can take action off of.
Right.
So.
Just a quick note on the concrete, our crew's rocking and rolling with a very small crew, but, we got all the FEMA sidewalks and curbs and gutters done. And so that, now that that's done, so now all the sidewalks that need to be repaired now basically falls on our team. And so Stacy Rouse has taken point on kind of helping them, strategically approach those projects. And so they're cranking out, like you said, a ton of both concrete and asphalt every month. So.
Cool.
Well, thank you. All right, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Commissioner Granger?
Yes.
Commissioner Street?
Yes.
Mayor Branch?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Reluctantly,
Jonathan.
yes.
Jonathan. 1 minute.